Part 17. Evolution begins with Resident Evil. Author, Wei Tongmiao. Chapter 167. Chapter 163. It doesn't matter. Inside the underground fortress command center, the two sides were on the verge of a fight, and no more nonsense was said. Belt glanced down. It was a display. He could see that the people outside the door were ready on both sides of the door, but they didn't know how to break in, and how to break the door, pointing at the door and talking, probably discussing how to break the door. Why not use explosives? The door of this fortress can withstand a lot of explosions. Even if the general is an eternal being, the shock wave generated by the explosion may kill him. Then cut the door open. That's too slow, the people inside may not be able to wait. But there is no gunfire inside now, maybe the general is delaying time for us. The World War II zombies are discussing plans. To be honest, when they were still alive, they were not familiar with protection tasks such as rescuing hostages, but when it comes to how to complete the task of eliminating hostages, that is their area of expertise. So apart from these two methods, they couldn't think of any other good methods, and could only improvise their ingenuity. Belt was also in a bad mood. Seeing his men discussing countermeasures, he remembered that breaking the door was also a difficult problem, and he still needed a signal to the people outside to cooperate with his actions. Belt looked at Hamas and Luo Guang. His face was ferocious. Hamas led his men directly into the command center, which killed him directly, and he couldn't help but curse in his heart. On the other side, Staff Officer Murphy also knew the dilemma at this time and kept thinking about solutions. Luo Guang saw the other party's dilemma and pulled Hamas in front of him to one side to avoid facing the door, otherwise he would be affected when the enemy broke the door. General, please think about it seriously. Staff Officer Hamas's attention was on persuading Belt at this time, and he had no doubts about Luo Guang pulling him away. Delaying time was also a method in the eyes of General Belt. He was an eternal creature, and his ability to endure hunger and thirst was many times longer than that of normal people, and he didn't even need too much sleep. It's just that the zombies of World War II sleep because sleep can prolong their lifespan and allow them to better integrate the eternal virus. At the same time, Staff Officer Murphy thought of a way, put down his gun, and said, "Hamas, I thought about it, you are right, such a strong talent should not be let go." Belter was surprised when he heard Murphy's words, and then realized why Murphy said that. This was to let the masked man let down his guard, trick him into joining, and then stab him in the back. However, Belter was not optimistic about this plan, because the masked man didn't look like a person who abandoned the dark and joined the light. General Belt took a deep breath and exhaled slowly. Just as he was about to cooperate with Murphy's words, he suddenly heard the old phone in the command center ringing. No one answered the phone. Luo Guang pointed to the phone and said, "Your phone is ringing, don't you answer it." "Yes, there may be an emergency." Staff Officer Hamas also looked puzzled and urged. Although Luo Guang was wearing a mask, Belt always felt that the masked man was laughing, as if he had anticipated the content of the call. Murphy glanced at Belt, and Belt nodded. With Belt's approval, Murphy picked up the phone beside him. "This is the underground headquarters," Murphy said. "Staff. Something bad has happened. Troops from other places have attacked directly." "What? How is this possible? Are they going to destroy Berlin again?" Hearing the intelligence on the other end of the phone, Murphy couldn't believe it. This situation shouldn't happen in their plan. This is Berlin. Belt knew something was wrong when he heard this. He underestimated the Prime Minister of Prussia, who was nicknamed the Good Guy. He didn't expect that the other party would be so decisive in launching an attack on Berlin, and was not afraid of the political impact of the war spreading in Berlin. The Prime Minister of Prussia was certainly not afraid. After all, whether he could continue to be the Prime Minister was just a matter of a word from the X organization. He was sent to this position by the X organization, so he was naturally not an incompetent guy. He usually looked like a good guy and was easy to communicate with, but it was just to paralyze others. To some extent, the Prussian Prime Minister's pretense was also related to the current domestic environment of Prussia. Because Prussia has not yet completely gotten rid of the influence of World War II, neither the civilians in the country nor other countries want the person who manages the country to be a tough person. In fact, the Prussian Prime Minister did not think about this matter for too long. He quickly calculated the account and convinced most of the ministers, including the Minister of Finance. As for the so-called impact of Berlin facing war again, what is it compared to the fact that Belt established an independent country? Belt thought that he had lived for so many years and could be foolproof in analyzing human nature and other things, but he did not expect that his plan was destined to go astray from the moment he analyzed the character of the Prussian Prime Minister. When Luo Guang heard what Murphy said, he also understood what the Prussian Prime Minister was doing. Such a direct attack was also beyond Luo Guang's expectations. However, the place that was destroyed was Berlin, so Luo Guang didn't care and quickly calmed down. What he was concerned about now was whether the Prussian Prime Minister would cross the river and destroy the bridge. Murphy, tell our army to hold their ground and fight mainly street battles with the enemy. The enemy wants to control the number of civilian casualties, which is a point we can take advantage of. The goal is to win the opportunity for negotiation. We must fight to a balance with the other side on the battlefield. As long as they pay a high enough price, we can drag them back to the negotiation table. This chapter is not over yet, please click on the next page to continue reading. While Luo Guang was thinking, Belt was giving orders and directing his men. Belt kept giving orders, but one of his hands was restless. His hand was moving towards the broadcast button of the underground fortress on the table little by little, intending to secretly turn on the broadcast. As long as he pressed this button, he could tell the people outside the command center about the situation and let them act according to the circumstances. General, do you want to announce my king's joining to the whole staff through the broadcast? General Belt had just started to move, and Staff Officer Hamas noticed the situation with his sharp eyes, squinted his crescent-like eyes, and smiled happily. After Staff Officer Hamas said this, Luo Guang did not wait any longer and directly raised his P-90 submachine gun and fired at Belt. Luo Guang did not aim and shoot in order to attack Belt as soon as possible. At this time, hip shooting was the best choice. At the same time, he also ordered Staff Officer Hamas that Staff Officer Murphy, who was on the phone, was a traitor. Murphy, you actually betrayed the general. Hamas pulled out his silver Luger P08 pistol given to him by Belt, and shot Murphy, who was holding the phone to convey Belt's order without any defense. With anger towards the traitor, he directly emptied his magazine. Father! Luo Guang's shooting did not succeed. The motionless World War II zombie wearing Marshal's uniform moved at the moment the gunshot sounded, rushed towards Belt, and used his body to block Luo Guang's fatal bullet for Belt. This World War II zombie turned out to be your father. Luo Guang stopped watching the show at this time. He took the submachine gun and surrounded it with Staff Officer Hamas, who had changed the bullets, and walked towards Belt and his father Walter, who were hiding behind the command table. In the historical records, Walter died of a sudden heart attack before the Nuremberg trial after World War II. Knowing that it was here and had become an eternal creature, Luo Guang couldn't help but think that this was another hidden historical truth. Hearing the gunshots from inside, the people outside felt that the situation was troublesome and didn't care so much. The two cutting machines were turned on at the same time, cutting the door, making annoying sounds. Bang bang. Staff Officer Hamas shot Murphy a few more times, with an excited look on his face, muttering, "Let you betray, let you betray." Because Hamas fired the gun before Luo Guang, it immediately attracted the attention of Walter, who was protecting his son. Although he had no reason at all, Walter still remembered one thing in his instinct after he turned into an eternal creature, which was to protect his son. Walter jumped onto the command table with his hands and feet, and then rushed towards Hamas. On the other side, Luo Guang didn't care about Hamas's life or death, and went straight to find trouble with Belt. Belt reacted in advance because of his sense of danger, but the bullets were faster than the zombies of World War II, so Belt was still shot several times. Fortunately, he was thrown to the ground by his father, otherwise the bullets on the way would have killed Belt. However, Belt has been transformed into an eternal creature, so the injury at this time is not fatal, and it does not affect Belt's actions. Belt took the opportunity to fall to the ground and get out of Luo Guang's sight, stood up and half-crouched, leaning against the marble table, hiding his whole body behind the command table, and then he didn't make any more sounds, and waited for the prey to appear. Perhaps Belt had various psychological activities, such as hundreds of simulated confrontations with the masked man in his mind, but Luo Guang on the other side didn't think so much. After confirming that the enemy only had a few small pistols, Luo Guang knew that he was stable this time. However, due to muscle memory and habit, Luo Guang still maintained tactical movements and thinking, so he did not walk close to the table, but leaned sideways to aim at the corner of the table, waiting for the prey to stick its head out. Bang 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 bang. Belter sensed something was wrong, and did not hide anymore, but took the initiative to attack, choosing to attack from the side of the table instead of from the front of the table. And Luo Guang was just aiming at that place, because Luo Guang knew that leaning from the side would expose less body parts than leaning from the top of the bunker. Luo Guang, with the 9mm bullet of the Luger pistol, rushed directly to Belter's gun, then kicked Belter's pistol away with a flying kick, then retracted his legs and kicked Belter with the thick sole of his military boots for the second time. Belter had not fought for a long time, and as an Air Force background, he was not particularly familiar with combat warfare, but he still reacted and blocked the attack on his chest with his other hand. However, Belter obviously underestimated the power of Luo Guang's kick. Luo Guang directly kicked and broke Belt's arm bone. If it weren't for the eternal virus that made the host's bones much harder, Luo Guang's kick would have directly broken Belt's sternum and the protected crystal heart. Belt Walter stood up, blood dripping from the corner of his mouth. Staff Officer Hamas under him had died, and blood was flowing from his neck. Walter rushed towards Luo Guang. He wanted to protect his son. Luo Guang raised his hand and fired a burst of bullets at Walter, who jumped onto the command table again, emptying the remaining bullets in the P-90 submachine gun magazine. Belt took this opportunity to retreat, leaving him no time to stand up again, but he still fired the last 2 bullets in the pistol at Luo Guang. One bullet hit Luo Guang's chest and one hit Luo Guang's mask, but Luo Guang was unmoved. Belt finally realized that the weapon in his hand had no effect on the masked man who was approaching him. This chapter is not over yet, please click on the next page to continue reading. Looking at his father on the command table, his father was already lying on the table, motionless. Belt's eyes were red, and his eyes were full of hatred when he looked at Luo Guang, but Luo Guang didn't care. The door of the underground command center had been cut in half, and people outside would soon rush in. While changing the last magazine of the P-90 submachine gun, Luo Guang said, "Your plan was doomed to fail from the moment it was exposed. If you didn't think too much and wanted everything, you wouldn't have been defeated by this simple blow from the Prime Minister of Prussia. If it weren't for the group of rubbish in the military camp that didn't get rid of the Prime Minister, my plan wouldn't have been so easily broken." Belt stood up and cursed, "As long as the Prime Minister and those ministers who are in office are cleared out, there will be no leader, and no one in the whole Prussia can stop me. No, other countries will not allow a country established by monsters like you to appear. Humph, so what? Anyway, this country that has lost the German spirit can only rise again through war. Only blood and fire can make those guys who have lost their national spirit stand up again. But they won't know what you do. The people of the whole Prussia will only think that you are a group of lunatics who want to drag the whole country into the abyss again, Luo Guang said while breaking Belt's legs with a gun. Then we will also climb out of the abyss. Lying on the ground with his hands, Belt raised his head and said, winners win, losers lose, you win. Whatever. To be honest, I am not interested in your plan. Then why are you interfering with us? Belt became even angrier when he heard this. Although he didn't know who the masked man in front of him was, he could only vent his anger for the failure of the plan on Luo Guang. Luo Guang suddenly wanted to tease the villain in front of him, although Luo Guang, who shot Belt's legs, was more like a villain, and said, actually, I really want to join you, because I want to get the eternal virus. You will never get it, I promise. Belt was still trying to be strong, or he was seeking a chance to survive. As long as Luo Guang asked him the reason, he could let Luo Guang spare his life on the grounds that the virus destruction program would be activated once he died. The door behind him was about to be completely cut, and Luo Guang felt that the time was almost up. After he shot 2 bullets into Belt's head and heart, Luo Guang said, it doesn't matter. My ears hurt, and I had an external otitis. It was aching and uncomfortable. Evolution begins with Resident Evil. Author, Wei Tongmiao. Chapter 168. Chapter 164 Belt's Shield. After dealing with Belt, Luo Guang looked at the display in front of Belt's position, pushed away the body of Walter who was lying on it, and then wiped the blood on it to confirm the situation outside the headquarters at this time. The number of enemies was less than Luo Guang imagined, only 11 in total, 6 on the left and 5 on the right outside the door. However, all these enemies carried STG-44 assault rifles, and the 7.92 x 33 mm short bullets they used could easily break through the hardened armor defense on Luo Guang's body, so Luo Guang had to think of a way to prepare within this minute. Luo Guang glanced at the progress of the cutting outside the door. He probably had less than 1 or 2 minutes left. He glanced at Hamas and Belt who had already fallen in a pool of blood, and had a plan in mind. The World War II zombies outside the door were very anxious. Just after the cutting was completed, a World War II zombie on standby kicked the iron door head-on. Before the iron door fell to the ground, it quickly made way for the World War II zombies on both sides of the door to rush in and occupy the bunker. They were not World War II zombies. They didn't want to raise their guns and fire at the headquarters to suppress it before going in, or throw a few grenades in to explore the way. This was because they didn't know the situation inside and were worried about accidentally hurting General Belt, so they rushed in relying on their eternal creature's survivability. However, they rushed out with great vigor and enthusiasm and were directly hit by the bullets fired by Luo Guang, and then fell down in a second. The hearts of 2 World War II zombies were shot through by Luo Guang's bullets. Finally, half a magazine of P-90 submachine gun bullets was used up, and after blocking the enemy's charge, Luo Guang directly threw away the P-90 submachine gun in his hand, because there was no suitable bullet for replenishment here. While the enemy didn't rush in again, Luo Guang picked up a shield with his left hand and drew out his Beretta M92F pistol with his right hand. This shield is not a metal shield. It looks like General Belt with 2 legs broken. Luo Guang directly cut open Belter's back with a knife, then reached in, grabbed Belter's spine and lifted it up, and then used the ability of hardened armor to generate a hardened armor shield inside Belter's body. In order to enhance the bulletproof ability, Luo Guang stacked 3 layers of hardened armor. The front and back layers were hardened to the maximum extent, while the middle layer maintained sufficient softness, and then the hardened armor on top was compressed and bonded. The overall idea was that if the hardness was not enough, the thickness would make up for it. This approach was not a temporary idea. Luo Guang had secretly tested it a long time ago. This stacking can defend against ordinary 5.56 mm bullets and 7.62 mm bullets fired by most guns. Although the special 7.92mm bullet of the STG-44 assault rifle had not been tested due to conditions, Luo Guang felt that after penetrating the shield, the bullet was also a spent force and basically could not penetrate the hardened armor that Luo Guang was still wearing at this time. Luo Guang usually doesn't use the shield because it takes a lot of his energy, and the increased size and mass will affect his movement speed. The most important point is that he can't explain where he got this shield from. However, now, all the energy Luo Guang uses to make the shield comes from the body of Staff Officer Hamas, who was infected with the T Veronica virus, or Hamas who mutated into a T Veronica virus zombie. There is another advantage to doing this, which is to directly remove the T Veronica virus in the body of Hamas. This poor guy is also unlucky and was eaten up by Luo Guang. As for why the body of Belter was put on this shield, it was not because Luo Guang was wrong, but to deter the enemy, to serve as a meat shield before the hardened armor is fully formed, and to slightly increase the defense ability, which is similar to hanging something on the shield in ancient times. So in the end, this shield was named Belter's Shield by Luo Guang. The enemy could only come in through that iron gate, so Luo Guang didn't have to face a large number of enemies at once. The other party looked out and saw that Luo Guang had belt in his hand, so he didn't act rashly. Because Luo Guang held Belt's spine, and used the T-virus and the ability of hardened armor, Luo Guang could control Belt to move, which looked very strange. Even though those World War II zombies were monsters themselves, they still felt terrified when they saw the Belt shield waving with both hands, and General Belt didn't respond to their calls, which made them wonder whether General Belt had fallen. It was not a solution to hide in the headquarters all the time. Luo Guang threw a fragmentation grenade out, causing a wave of chaos among the World War II zombies, and then held the Belt shield and rushed to the door. An enemy wanted to throw the grenade back, but Luo Guang shot directly at the hand of the one who picked up the grenade. The World War II zombie couldn't use his strength for a while, and the hand holding the grenade loosened, and the grenade that was about to explode fell to the ground, and the World War II zombies had no chance to remedy it again. The grenade exploded, shrapnel flew everywhere. Luo Guang took this opportunity to rush out of the door, shooting to the right, and stretched out his left-hand shield to the left to protect his body, and then moved to the right. The four people on the right were quickly cleared by Luo Guang, and the enemy on the left finally prepared themselves mentally, and finally realized that General Belt was dead, and all of them began to fight back. Because of anger, the enemy on the left held the trigger tightly, but unfortunately all the bullets shot hit the Belter shield. With the bonus of Belter's corpse, the shield successfully blocked the attack of 7.92mm bullets. This chapter is not over yet. Please click on the next page to continue reading the exciting content. It's not that the enemy didn't think of attacking Luo Guang's place without shield defense, such as the feet exposed when Luo Guang moved before, but Luo Guang immediately half-crouched after clearing the enemy on the right, hiding himself behind the shield, and blocked all the enemy's attacks with the Belter shield, while giving the opponent greater mental pressure. There were a few light clicks, and Luo Guang heard the sound of the opponent's bullets being shot out, and immediately leaned sideways with the shield to shoot back. With a bang, the first World War II zombie that rushed up was solved. The moment the bullets ran out, those World War II zombies immediately took out their pistols and rushed towards Luo Guang. Luo Guang noticed that the blue light in the eyes of the World War II zombies seemed to become more conspicuous as they became more angry. From a distance, he thought that a ball of fire was burning in their eyes. Because Luo Guang was sticking to one side, the World War II zombies could only bypass the shield from the other side. Luo Guang did not replace the gun with a knife to fight, nor did he abandon the shield and draw the knife with his left hand. Instead, he moved the hand holding the Belt shield, and then Belt's arms automatically raised up, just hitting the arm of the World War II zombie that was bypassing. After being hit suddenly, the World War II zombie raised his head and unconsciously took a step back. Luo Guang seized this opportunity to shoot and kill another World War II zombie. The next enemy successfully bypassed the shield, holding a Luger P-08 pistol in his hand, and shot at Luo Guang. Luo Guang, who was wearing hardened armor, was naturally not weak. There were still 8 bullets left in his pistol, which was enough for Luo Guang to deal with the remaining enemies. However, he did not immediately counterattack the enemy who attacked him. Instead, he moved his left hand holding the belt shield in front of the enemy who was shooting, and then put his right hand on the joint of his left hand and shot at the 2 World War II zombies who did not get around. Bullets hitting the shield did not make a clanging sound, so Luo Guang judged the situation in front of the shield by the impact of the bullets hitting the shield. Belt, whose shield was constantly shaking due to the bullets, died with his eyes open, and once again caused a great mental attack on those World War II zombies. Suddenly, the remaining 2 World War II zombies rushed towards the shield like crazy, trying to snatch the body of their general, Belt. Feeling the pulling force from the shield and the hands of World War II zombies that appeared on both sides of the belt shield, Luo Guang understood what the other party was going to do. Luo Guang first exerted force on his side, causing the opponent to increase the strength of the confrontation, and then suddenly exerted force in the direction of the opponent's force, and then the opponent's pulling force directly knocked the 2 World War II zombies into the hard wall. This collision was not light, and at the same time, the 2 World War II zombies had to let go of their hands and try to push away the shield, but Luo Guang directly followed the opponent's force to push away, quickly moved the shield aside, and then raised his right hand and shot at the 2 World War II zombies, successfully killing the remaining 2 World War II zombies. After solving the enemies at the door of the command room, Luo Guang looked around and soon found that the surveillance showed 11, but he only solved 10. It seems that there is a fish that slipped through the net. I just don't know if the escaped World War II zombie went to notify other World War II zombies for support. The communication of this underground fortress is very troublesome. The communication of each area is carried out through the telephones hung on the wall inside the fortress or placed in other places. However, even if Luo Guang dares to chase now, it is probably too late to stop the other party from telling the news of Belt's death. Since this is the case, Luo Guang does not need to rush to chase the fleeing enemy. Instead, he should melt the hardened armor that has become a shield and turn it into a pool of black colloid liquid. According to the system, this black liquid has no research value at all. Dr. Luo Guang threw the used body of Belt directly to the ground without giving the general a trace of respect, because Luo Guang did not like this kind of madman who caused disasters. If Belt was still alive, he might retort that genius is always misunderstood by mortals, and makes mortals regard genius as madman. Without a spare glance, Luo Guang set his sights on other World War II zombies, and then picked up an STG-44 assault rifle and replaced it with a brand new magazine, and then took a few magazines from those World War II zombies and put them on himself, and finally replaced his Beretta pistol with a new magazine. Then Luo Guang returned to the headquarters, searched briefly and took some useful information, and then confirmed the situation in various places in the underground bunker through the monitoring in the headquarters. There was still no fighting at the entrance of the underground fortress. It seemed that the Prussian army had not yet attacked here. Then he switched the monitoring channel, and then Luo Guang knew why he did not attract more enemies after making a noise in the command room. It turned out that in addition to himself, 2 little mice also entered the underground fortress. And they, like himself, did not know which way or which method they came in, and they also did not alarm the World War II zombies at the entrance of the underground fortress. The opponent's target seemed to be the research institute of the underground fortress. They had reached the first floor of the research institute and launched a fierce attack on the defenders there. At the same time, the World War II zombies there seemed to be retreating step by step and were very close to the entrance of the research institute. Seeing this scene, Luo Guang immediately transformed into a Superman, picked up his weapon, and immediately ran to the research institute in the underground fortress. The location of the research institute was still told to Luo Guang by Hamas, so Luo Guang knew the floor and direction of the research institute, so he quickly arrived near the research institute. When he heard the gunshots, he immediately lowered his footsteps and carefully moved in the direction of the gunshots. This chapter is not over yet, please click on the next page to continue reading the exciting content. When Luo Guang walked over, the research institute was still in the battle. The World War II zombies relied on the terrain to defend, and their enemies were two women. Both women were wearing gray-black tights, wearing a fully enclosed helmet, a tactical belt around their waists, and holding Prussian G-36 assault rifles. There were no military ranks, team badges, or other signs, so Luo Guang could not confirm who the two people were for a while. There were no signs of injury on the two people, but the World War II zombies suffered heavy losses and had retreated to the entrance of the research institute. Luo Guang hid in the corner, secretly checking the situation, and did not rush out to attack the World War II zombies from the front and back. The two women fought very fiercely, and they seemed not to be worried about being shot. They held their guns and moved forward, directly solving the enemies that appeared in their field of vision. The World War II zombies thought about shooting from behind the bunker, that is, people hid in the bunker and only stretched the muzzle out of the bunker to shoot. The two women were in the empty corridor, so the hit rate would not be low. But as long as they stretched out their guns, before they straightened the guns and aimed at the corridor, the bullets of the two women preemptively hit their guns. This reaction speed is too fast. Luo Guang can also do this, but it is not so smooth, and Luo Guang also feels that there is no need to be so tough and put himself in danger. As soon as Luo Guang made a comment, he found that the two women seemed to have discovered him. The G-36 assault rifles in their hands immediately aimed at Luo Guang, and Luo Guang did not hesitate at all, and immediately retracted. He suddenly regretted that he had melted the shield, otherwise he could still use it in this situation. However, Luo Guang only regretted it for a short while. Judging from the enemy's reaction speed, unless he made a full-body shield, the enemy could shoot his feet at any time, and this would only put him at a disadvantage when he was alone. The two women exchanged a few words through the short-range communicator built into the helmet, and then continued to act. First, they cleared the enemies at the entrance of the institute, and then they split into two groups, and one of them was heading for Luo Guang's position. Meow. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Evolution begins with Resident Evil. Author, Wei Tongmiao. Chapter 169. Chapter 165 Mysterious Enemy. When the other party was concentrating on attacking the World War II zombies at the entrance of the institute, Luo Guang once again looked out to check the situation. He saw that the two of them were divided into two groups, and one of them was running straight towards him. Although the other party was running fast, Luo Guang did not hear the footsteps of the other party. It seems that the other party's shoes have been silenced. I am not one of those World War II zombies, Luo Guang shouted from behind the wall, but the other party did not respond with words, but responded with bullets. Luo Guang quickly shrank back. Since the other party was unreasonable, Luo Guang was not polite. He identified the other party as a mysterious enemy, and then quickly turned sideways to prepare to shoot back. But the mysterious enemy reached the corner much faster than Luo Guang imagined. The other party raised his gun horizontally and lifted Luo Guang's gun up. The two sides wrestled, and the enemy successfully passed the corner. Luo Guang was very powerful, and the mysterious enemy soon couldn't hold on and was directly pressed over. So in order to break the situation, the enemy raised his right foot and kicked Luo Guang's lower body with a whip kick. Unlike high kicks, it is not easy for people to directly catch the legs and feet of the lower body, and it is not easy to block the attack on the lower body. Moreover, if you jump high to avoid it, the enemy will catch the flaw. The wall is on Luo Guang's right side. Fortunately, the opponent has passed this corner, otherwise Luo Guang will not be able to kick the enemy's left whip kick with his right foot to intercept. However, the enemy took advantage of the force of his hands being pressed down to quickly squat on one leg, and the whip kick was also lowered to a sweeping kick. Before Luo Guang's interception arrived, he kicked Luo Guang's supporting leg first, causing Luo Guang to fall to the left. Luo Guang was a little surprised. The enemy's speed and reaction speed were not normal. While Luo Guang was still falling to the ground, the opponent took over a new attack with lightning speed, stood up and raised his knees forward, and one knee hit Luo Guang's abdomen, knocking Luo Guang directly away. Although the opponent had the advantage, Luo Guang was not worried. Instead, he was grateful to the opponent for taking the initiative to distance himself. Luo Guang immediately rolled up after landing, then used his right leg to dodge to the left, and then raised his gun to prepare for a counterattack. The reason why the enemy used his knee to push Luo Guang away was to create enough distance for her to shoot and end the battle as soon as possible. The enemy fired 3 shots with a G36 assault rifle, but Luo Guang was no longer in the position where he rolled up. He successfully predicted the attack of the mysterious enemy, avoided the enemy's bullets, and fired back. The opponent failed to hit him, and also moved his position immediately. However, Luo Guang's prediction and avoidance of the counterattack still caught the opponent off guard, so the enemy could only barely avoid the bullet by taking a step back. Luo Guang chose to hold down the trigger directly and swept in the direction of the enemy's retreat. The opponent also predicted this point, and immediately retreated to the corner, and then relied on the cover to avoid Luo Guang's bullets. On the other side, Luo Guang saw the other side hiding in the corner, so he immediately stuck back to the right wall, so that he and the enemy were back on the same starting line again. After continuous shooting, the bullets in Luo Guang's weapon were running low, while the enemy's assault rifle still had at least half of the bullets. The other side also knew the situation and wanted to lean over and shoot at Luo Guang, who was sticking to the wall. As long as he wasted a little more of the other side's bullets, he could take advantage of Luo Guang's opportunity to change bullets and launch a fatal attack on Luo Guang. Lu Guo naturally knew this, so Luo Guang did not hesitate to abandon the assault rifle and rushed to the corner. He directly grasped the heat-sink position of the front section of the enemy's G36 assault rifle with his left hand, and then pulled it towards himself. The enemy knew that the assault rifle might not be effective in close combat, so she directly pressed the magazine release button, unloaded the bullet, and then directly pulled the trigger to shoot the round in the chamber, just to gamble and see if she could cause damage to the enemy's ears through close-range shooting. Finally, the enemy let go, and Luo Guang did not use the gun as a fire stick, but threw it directly on the ground. Both sides freed their hands, and it was time to fight. Because Luo Guang wanted to throw away the opponent's gun, the enemy attacked first, with his right hand in the shape of a knife, stretched and straight, and stabbed Luo Guang's eyes. Luo Guang leaned back to avoid it, and at the same time attacked with his right hand, grabbing the enemy's wrist, trying to capture the enemy to gain an advantage. But the enemy was obviously prepared for this, and slapped Luo Guang's right hand to the side with a knife, and then attacked with his left hand under the cover of the right hand movement, and used a collapsing punch with his footsteps. Luo Guang jumped back to avoid this collapsing punch, and then took the opportunity of the opponent's fist to jump forward with a left hook, but he didn't expect that the opponent was not a martial artist, and slapped Luo Guang's attacking right hand away and took out the short knife on his left waist, then held the knife in an ice cone style and slashed upward, aiming at the inside of Luo Guang's left wrist joint. Sparks flew everywhere. The enemy's knife hit Luo Guang's stretch-hardened armor and failed. Luo Guang's left hook continued to hit the enemy's helmet. It's really hard, Luo Guang thought to himself. The helmet did not break after Luo Guang's full-strength attack. It just had a dent on the lower cheek, which made Luo Guang wonder if he had used the right strength. The impact of this punch was not small, but the enemy's helmet was obviously very resistant to impact, so the enemy did not suffer a concussion from the punch, but still took a few steps back. Tisk the opponent felt that Luo Guang in front of him was a bit difficult to deal with, so he raised his leg and kicked at the weak point of Luo Guang's lower balls. This chapter is not over yet, please click on the next page to continue reading the exciting content. Luo Guang did not want to give up the advantage of close-range suppression, and was about to take advantage of the victory and close the distance again. Seeing that the opponent used a crotch kick, he did not dare to bet on the hardness of the armor below, so he moved to the left to avoid it, and at the same time got away from the wall on the right, so he could swing his right fist. The enemy knew that Luo Guang was stronger than him, so after the kick missed, he did not use his waist to sweep or use a line kick to attack Luo Guang, but immediately retracted his leg, and then switched the knife holding method from ice cone to hammer holding method, preparing to use the weapon in his hand to attack Luo Guang's mask eyes and other places. Luo Guang also took this opportunity to take out his invisible Lang Erka knife, also holding the knife with his right hand, using the hammer holding method, and then raised both hands to the chest position, with the right hand in front and the left hand behind, and took a stance. There was no extra dialogue. In order to gain the initiative, the enemy chose to take the initiative and used a straight stab, aiming at the position of Luo Guang's neck artery. Although this straight stab was simple, it was very good as a starting move. The attack was fast and the attack route was the shortest straight line. If the attack failed, it could be swung in all directions with the footsteps, and it could be quickly retracted when necessary. The length of the Lang Erka knife in Luo Guang's hand was several centimeters longer than the opponent's dagger. He took a step back and then swung the knife to cut the opponent's hand holding the knife. Seeing this, the enemy directly changed his attack, turning the stab into a slash, and used the blade of the dagger to block Luo Guang's blade, but Luo Guang's strength was obviously greater than that of the opponent, and the opponent's sudden change of action was not easy to fully exert force, causing the opponent's hand holding the knife to be directly pressed aside. Luo Guang would not waste this opportunity, and continued to move forward with the combat strategy of closing the distance, while the Lang Erka knife in his hand followed the opponent's blade to wipe the enemy's hand holding the knife. The enemy turned his wrist and blocked Luo Guang's attack with the short knife's guard, but Luo Guang obviously anticipated this and drew his knife away at the moment when he was about to cut the guard, and then stabbed the enemy directly. The distance between the two sides was very close. The enemy grabbed the outside of Luo Guang's right wrist with his left hand to block Luo Guang's attack, and continued to stab with his right hand, but Luo Guang used his own method to fight back. He also successfully strangled the opponent's right wrist with his left hand. Unlike Luo Guang, the opponent was wearing a tight suit, while Luo Guang was wearing hardened armor. The opponent tried to press on Luo Guang's wrist to disarm, but pressed on the integrated hardened armor, making it impossible to disarm. On the other hand, Luo Guang pressed and twisted it directly outwards, and wanted to do a single-handed wrist twist, using a similar principle to hemp rope to tighten the opponent's hand in the opposite direction. This twisting force would reach the enemy's fixed shoulder and then quickly transmit back. In the end, this force would be borne by the fragile wrist, achieving the purpose of twisting the enemy's wrist. After several fights, the mysterious enemy also understood that with Luo Guang's defense and reaction, the success rate of kicking Luo Guang away and escaping from being strangled by his wrist was very slim. So the mysterious enemy gave up the left hand that could not resist Luo Guang's chopping force and could not disarm, jumped up without hesitation, and then twisted his waist, and at the same time borrowed the power of Luo Guang's twisting wrist to release the power originally blocked in the shoulder to the whole body, and directly clamped Luo Guang's chopping hand with his legs in mid-air. It's not that the mysterious enemy doesn't want to kick Luo Guang to death with this move, but because before she kicks Luo Guang's Gurkha knife in his hand will definitely chop herself first. Luo Guang also saw this action for the first time, and almost thought that the other party was hanging on the wire, and he accidentally entered a movie set. The opponent clamped Luo Guang's hand not only to prevent the chop, but also to continue to use the torsion force to twist Luo Guang's hand and remove Luo Guang's weapon. However, the difference in strength between the two sides was too great, which fully demonstrated what one force defeats 10 skills, not to mention the blessing of the integrated armor, so the enemy still couldn't twist Luo Guang's arm. Luo Guang exerted force with his arm, turned around and directly knocked the enemy, who clamped his right arm against the wall. The enemy pulled out the P99 pistol from the holster tied to his thigh with one hand and shot at Luo Guang's head. Because even if the mysterious enemy wanted to loosen her feet, her right hand was still held by Luo Guang's wrist and she couldn't break free. She knew that as long as she loosened her grip, the opponent would definitely break her wrist. According to the mysterious enemy's plan, the opponent should not be able to dodge such a close-range shooting, and could only choose to immediately loosen his right hand and use his left hand to stop himself from using the pistol to aim. As long as Luo Guang loosened his right hand, the initiative would return to the mysterious enemy. But Luo Guang chose to directly take the attack of the pistol. As the mysterious enemy fired, Luo Guang blocked the shot and slammed the mysterious enemy against the wall. After this, Luo Guang wanted to continue. Although he might not be able to inflict much damage on the enemy, he could still consume the enemy's physical strength through the collision. But the mysterious enemy took advantage of this brief pullback and chose to throw away the pistol and directly pulled the flash bomb on his waist. Even if it is a flash bomb, it will still cause certain damage when it explodes at close range. There was once a special police officer who used a flash bomb during a hostage rescue, which resulted in a child being burned. But both the hardened armor on Luo Guang's arm and the tights on the enemy have certain protective capabilities. So both sides could ignore the damage caused by the flash bomb at close range, but the short and sudden flash still affected Luo Guang's eyes, causing serious damage. The enemy's helmet was fully enclosed and looked a bit like a motorcycle helmet, which happened to have the function of preventing strong light, so it was not affected too much. This chapter is not over yet, please click on the next page to continue reading the exciting content. Although Luo Guang recovered quickly, facing the strong light, he still instinctively blocked his eyes with his hands. Because his right hand was entangled, he used his left hand to block, which allowed the mysterious enemy to successfully untie the restraint on his knife-holding hand. The enemy did not sneak attack when Luo Guang raised his hand, but quickly pulled away, without even picking up the gun, and ran directly to find his teammates for support. Luo Guang recovered faster than the enemy imagined, and immediately chased after him, but happened to meet a group of World War II zombies who were rushing to the underground bunker research institute with weapons to eliminate the enemy. Forced to do nothing, with just a little time difference, Luo Guang could only watch the mysterious enemy flash into the door of the institute, and he had no choice but to hide behind the steel plate bunker built by the World War II zombies near the door with a handsome side slide, and took the STG-44 assault rifle from the World War II zombie killed by the mysterious enemy behind the bunker. Leaning behind the bunker, Luo Guang first unloaded the magazine of the assault rifle he had just taken, took a look inside, felt the weight of the magazine, and found that there were about half of the bullets. Then he inserted the magazine back, and then fired the gun back, and then took the opportunity to change a new magazine and cleared the World War II zombies that pressed over one by one. After dealing with the enemy, he replaced it with a brand new full magazine again. Luo Guang picked up the gun and was about to enter the institute, but was shot back by the mysterious enemy with an assault rifle. Hearing the gunshot, Luo Guang confirmed that the mysterious enemy also picked up the assault rifles in the hands of the World War II zombies. Recalling that the assault rifles and pistols that the other party had at the beginning were the standard weapons in service in Prussia, Luo Guang suspected that the other party might be the special forces of Prussia. However, Luo Guang only thought about it. He would definitely kill the other party when he saw him later. At this time, Luo Guang was not in a hurry to break through the defense of the mysterious enemy. Instead, he was thinking about whether to take a long way to another entrance, while shooting back at the enemy who was squatting inside to block Luo Guang, confirming that the enemy who was blocking him was still here. After firing a few shots, Luo Guang took the opportunity to expose one eye to quickly observe the situation inside, confirm the location of the enemy's bunker, then took out a grenade and squeezed it for 2 seconds, then threw the grenade in, and then directly added the last flash bomb. After the two throwing objects exploded, Luo Guang immediately rushed in. Meow, now the writer's assistant has a built-in error correction function, meow, then I am not losing money to become a member of other error correction software. Evolution begins with Resident Evil. Author, Wei Tong Miao. Chapter 170. Chapter 166 Exploring each other's intelligence. Because of his helmet, Luo Guang's flash shock bomb had little effect on the mysterious enemy, but the frag grenade was still a real deterrent. When the mysterious enemy saw a black thing and threw it directly towards him, he immediately abandoned his weapon as if conditioned reflex. Take the bunker and run deeper into the research institute. Luo Guang came to the corner of the enemy's previous bunker to check the situation, and was attacked by the enemy again. The two exchanged another wave of fire, and then the enemy suddenly continued to retreat. At this time, Luo Guang suspected that this was a lure trick by the mysterious enemy and wanted to flank her with her teammates. The facts are consistent with Luo Guang's guess, because another teammate of the mysterious enemy told her that the first mission objective has been completed, and she has successfully obtained the experimental data used by World War II zombie researchers to study the eternal virus over the years, so the two together, they decided to deal with Luo Guang, an enemy who was equally mysterious to them, and the direction of their temptation was exactly opposite to the direction of the eternal virus. Storage room. The enemy I met didn't look like an accomplice of the undead. He was physically stronger than me. I almost couldn't get back. Also, the grenade he threw just now wasn't the old M24 type used by the undead. The grenade is an M26 grenade from the Lighthouse country, probably from the Lighthouse country. Can you confirm who the other party belongs to? According to the intelligence, I remember that the members of the Red Claws have evacuated, right? Is it a private army of another organization? I don't know. He said he was not the same group as those undead people. Then you didn't ask tentative questions to collect information about the other party. I originally planned to ask directly after subduing the other party. You also know that I don't like to engage in nonsense. But then I got angry and didn't say anything. Sigh, I should have exchanged tasks with you if I had known earlier. That person should be coming over here. We can take this opportunity to test each other and get information. If there are two of us, we will have greater confidence in the fight. However, we must pay attention to the fact that the enemy's overall physical fitness is higher than ours, even if it is the enhancement capabilities we chose are comparable to his. You really have brought us a difficult enemy. But the opponent is so strong, we may find a way to kidnap him back and let the missionaries give him lessons and let him join us. The two discussed for a while waiting for Luo Guang to come over to see if they could find out anything from Luo Guang. However, Luo Guang would not follow the other party's ideas, and he felt that the two mysterious enemies were here to snatch the eternal virus from him, so he took another side road and went to the storage room of the eternal virus. The place happened to be separate from the research room where the mysterious enemy was. The location of the virus storage room in this institute was obtained by Luo Guang based on the map found in the command room, so his walking route was very clear. Along the way, Luo Guang only met a few hiding World War II zombie researchers, wearing white coats. Luo Guang tried to catch one and torture it, but as Belt mentioned before, these World War II zombie researchers were caught. If you see that there is no hope of escape, you will immediately destroy your heart. However, Luo Guang was lucky and found a set of keys from one of the researchers, one of which was used to open the storage room. The storage room is not big, and the indoor temperature is 36.8 degrees Celsius. There are many rectangular cabinets with cylindrical grooves on them, but most of them are empty. It seems that the World War II zombie viruses were vacuum stored in cylindrical grooves. Container, and then put it into the groove of this cabinet for thermal preservation. Luo Guang had no intention of taking these eternal viruses out of the underground fortress, so he directly pulled out an eternal virus storage container, confirmed the label content, then unscrewed the lid and poured the liquid containing the eternal viruses into his mouth. A perfect interpretation. What does it mean that disease comes from the mouth? It tastes terrible. Although he thought so, Luo Guang still swallowed it as a bitter cold dish, and the system immediately analyzed that the liquid contained ingredients of nutrient solution, but the content of these ingredients was not much. In addition, there were eternal viruses and ordinary pure water, and the final conclusion was that the liquid was non-toxic to adapters. After hearing the system's analysis of the liquid, Luo Guang thought of a possibility. This eternal virus is so difficult to grow. There shouldn't be many eternal viruses that Belt and the others have been able to mass produce over the years. It's no wonder that so many grooves in the storage room are empty. It can also be seen from the side that Belt the plan can no longer be delayed, Luo Guang guessed in his heart. But one thing Luo Guang didn't know was that the eternal virus in this container was concentrated. The content of the eternal virus in the virus container detonated at the military camp outside Berlin was actually the same as the one in Luo Guang's hand. This storage container is about 5 liters in size. The amount of viruses here is small simply because the eternal virus will control its replication activities according to the living environment and will not overproduce when there is insufficient food. With the experience from last time, the system's analysis of the eternal virus is more rapid and decisive this time. Because there are a large number of eternal viruses in the body, the system is not polite and directly intercepts and saves different gene fragments from each eternal virus, then analyzes them, and finally puts them together into a complete eternal virus gene fragment. This is the system's bottom line. In addition, the entire eternal virus gene analysis will be conducted to ensure that the analysis is foolproof, but this requires a speed competition with the eternal virus crystallization process. Analysis started. Gene fragments are being extracted. The price is that it takes some time to intercept and save the eternal virus gene fragments before analysis. Luo Guang, who still has confidence in the system, decided to destroy the eternal virus in the storage room. As for whether other organizations can successfully extract the eternal virus from those World War II zombies, Luo Guang said that this is none of his business, and he just did his best. It is not difficult to destroy the virus here. Luo Guang directly manually adjusted the insulation temperature of the cabinet, raising the insulation temperature to 100 degrees Celsius in one breath, and then inserted the container he had drunk back into the insulation cabinet for high-temperature disinfection. Clapping his hands, Luo Guang closed the door of the storage room and prepared to leave for the research room. As for the 2 mysterious enemies, Luo Guang felt that he was not in a hurry to kill them. It would be better to get some information first. Of course, if the other party still attacks directly like that, it proves that the other party cannot communicate, and there is no need to capture them alive. As for which organization the 2 mysterious enemies might belong to, Luo Guang didn't have a candidate in mind, so he didn't make random guesses, so as not to let preconceived ideas affect his subsequent judgment. Unexpectedly, Luo Guang encountered the 2 mysterious enemies head-on before he reached the fork in the road leading to the entrance of the institute and the laboratory. The 2 mysterious enemies saw that Luo Guang didn't catch up immediately, so they didn't continue to wait. They were worried that Luo Guang would go to the other side, so they confirmed the location of the eternal virus storage room based on the research data and set off immediately. Wait a minute. Luo Guang had raised his gun and planned to subdue one person first, but the other party's shout was very timely, and Luo Guang's finger had already pressed the trigger a little. Seeing that the enemy didn't raise his gun, Luo Guang didn't put down his weapon because of this, and asked cautiously, "Who are you?" The mysterious enemy looked at Luo Guang. If this topic was to continue, this was an unavoidable question. But the problem is that he didn't listen to Luo Guang's call at first, which led to a fight between the two sides, and the trust between the two sides changed from not knowing who was friend or foe to being hostile. However, the mysterious enemy thought of a possibility, that is, Luo Guang and himself had the same plan, to get information from each other. "We are from the HCF organization," one of the mysterious enemies replied. This answer was naturally impossible to be true. She just said it casually. Anyway, she felt that the enemy would not tell the truth. Testing was just like that. Luo Guang sneered and didn't believe what the other party said at all. "It seems that you don't have much sincerity, and you are so bold to pretend to be the name of our organization. Aren't you afraid that our boss will hunt you down?" If the two mysterious enemies were really from the HCF organization, Luo Guang didn't believe that Wesker would not come with him to find the eternal virus. After all, the man in sunglasses would not trust others, except William, and easily hand over the task of collecting viruses to others, so Luo Guang directly turned the tables here and said that he was a member of the HCF organization. This is why Wesker often goes out to do business even though he controls the entire HCF organization. "Which department are you from? Who is the boss?" asked the mysterious enemy with a dent in his helmet. This sounded like the same organization, but unconnected departments accidentally met in the same place, but Luo Guang knew that the enemy was trying to find out the personnel intelligence of his department through this question to confirm whether he was really a member of the HCF organization. However, this made Luo Guang feel that the other party might know something about the HCF organization. "Our boss is Albert Wesker, a tough guy with sunglasses and a handsome guy." Luo Guang said it without any psychological pressure, and threatened, "If he hadn't had other tasks and acted separately from me, you would have been killed by him alone." Hearing this, the expressions of the two people hidden in the full coverage helmets became solemn, because they did know such a person as Albert Wesker, and according to the intelligence obtained by their organization, that person did belong to the HCF organization. Not long ago, the people sent by their organization encountered the HCF organization, which also wanted to collect viruses, during their mission. Then their team was wiped out by a man wearing sunglasses and bringing biological weapons. If it weren't for the fact that their helmets could upload the data of the battlefield recorder built into the helmets in real time in an open space, they wouldn't have known that such an organization existed. Then their organization compared the appearance database and found that the man wearing sunglasses was very likely Albert Wesker, who had worked at Umbrella Corporation and STARS of the Raccoon City Police Department. At this time, when they saw Luo Guang mention the name of the man wearing sunglasses, they couldn't help but believe in their hearts that Luo Guang was indeed a member of the HCF organization. "Who are you? Or let me change the question. What is your purpose?" Although Luo Guang was considerate and didn't ask them questions that they couldn't answer, the latter question was actually not easy to answer, because they didn't know whether their missions conflicted with each other's. However, when they saw Luo Guang coming from the storage room, they tentatively said, "Our organization conducts various researches for the future of mankind. This time we are here for the eternal virus that can make people immortal." "How do you know about this virus?" This chapter is not over yet, please click on the next page to continue reading. "Why don't you answer a question for us first, big brother?" Luo Guang did not answer immediately, pretending to think for a while, and then said after a pause, "Ask. What is your purpose?" For world peace. Luo Guang's words made the other party stunned and laughed, but Luo Guang did not react to it, and continued, "It's your turn to answer my question. But your words are too empty, it's unfair." Luo Guang was too lazy to argue, calculated the time, the virus should have been destroyed, and said, "Destroy the virus." "What?" As soon as Luo Guang said this, the two mysterious enemies could not laugh, because their purpose was to collect the virus and bring it back to the organization for research. As soon as Luo Guang saw the reaction of the other party, he understood that the other party and his purpose were opposite. It was the man with the dented helmet who first shouted, This eternal virus is related to the possibility of human immortality. How can you do such a wasteful thing? And how could your organization let you do such a thing? It seems that you know a lot about my organization, but please don't act like you know our organization's purpose very well. Because their team was wiped out by the HCF organization, the mysterious enemies organization specifically investigated the HCF organization. Although a lot of intelligence was not collected, at least they can confirm one thing, that the HCF organization is definitely not the kind of organization that acts for world peace. Judging from your reactions, your mission should be different from mine, but you are too late. I have destroyed all the viruses. Seeing that the other party did not reply, Luo Guang continued with a smile, not letting the other party ask about his organization's purpose. He could not answer this question, and it would be easy to be exposed. The virus has been destroyed. Believe it or not, just go and see for yourself. But before that, you haven't answered my question yet. Another mysterious enemy who had never fought with Luo Guang felt that the most important thing now was to confirm the situation of the eternal virus. If the eternal virus in the storage room was really destroyed by the person in front of him, their organization had a backup plan. According to the information they collected in the laboratory, some of the eternal virus had been transported out, so their organization had other people to recover that part of the virus. They could only pray that they could succeed, otherwise the fault and responsibility on their side would be too great, and they didn't want to face the punishment of the organization. We have our own intelligence source in Berlin. Military, Luo Guang guessed it at once, and it was very likely that it was someone hidden among the Bell Special Forces soldiers, otherwise it would be difficult for the other party to know the name of the eternal virus. Since you already know, there's no need to ask. Seeing you're in a hurry, let me say one last thing. How about we go our separate ways? Luo Guang proposed a plan, planning to stab them in the back when they went to check the situation of the eternal virus. The terrain over there in the storage room is relatively narrow, making it easier for him to capture the enemy. No, why don't we go the same way? We'll take you back, teach you a lesson, and let you know that some precious things in the world cannot be destroyed casually. O equals mathematical intersection symbol omega mathematical intersection symbol equals M. Evolution begins with Resident Evil. Author, Wei Tongmiao. Chapter 171. Chapter 167 Fusion of Eternal Virus. Luo Guang wanted to peacefully resolve the dispute with the two mysterious enemies, but the other party did not seem to appreciate it. Perhaps it was because Luo Guang destroyed one of their mission targets, so they had to do something to make up for their failure. This is indeed one reason. Another reason is that the two enemies think that if they can capture someone with extremely strong physical fitness like Luo Guang and successfully bring him back, it can be regarded as making up for their mistakes. After all, their organization has always advocated eugenics and believes that children born from a strong union can optimize human genes and slowly promote human evolution. Therefore, men and women with strong genes and excellent qualities have always been the talents favored by their organization. Especially if Luo Guang does not rely on drugs to enhance a certain ability of his own like the mysterious enemies, and can achieve this level by himself, then the two of them will even directly receive commendations from their superiors and be able to be the first lucky ones to have the opportunity to communicate deeply with outstanding talents. The two mysterious people in front of Luo Guang, one of them is enhanced by drugs in the direction of flexibility, that is, the enemy who fought with Luo Guang, and the other enemy is enhanced in the direction of strength. The two people's strengthening directions are complementary, and therefore the flexible enemy with a more impactful personality was initially arranged to chase Luo Guang. Because the expatriates of their organization basically rely on drugs for short-term strengthening, and the duration of strengthening is about 18 to 36 hours depending on each person's physique, so the two can only choose to strengthen a certain aspect of the body before the mission and cannot change it in the middle. It is precisely because this power is borrowed that the team they organized was easily wiped out by Wesker, who is fully developed and familiar with his physical abilities. However, although they want to capture Luo Guang and bring him back alive, they did not give up using guns. They directly raised their guns and shot at Luo Guang's limbs. After all, they can research such a powerful strengthening potion. Their organization has strong medical capabilities. As long as there is a breath, the researchers of the organization can rescue from the hands of the god of death. However, this time Luo Guang's actions were very strange, as if he had anticipated the opponent's actions and the path of the bullets fired, and easily avoided all the bullets and then counterattacked. If Wesker relied on the extreme dynamic vision evolved by the T-virus based on Wesker to gain the ability to dodge himself, then Luo Guang's ability is a little unscientific. This ability to dodge bullets is a new ability that Luo Guang gained from the Eternal Virus, Danger Perception. Although the speed of analyzing the Eternal Virus this time is not as fast as before, it is also compared with the speed of completing the analysis in 1 or 2 minutes before. In fact, when Luo Guang was talking to the mysterious enemy, he paused in the middle before answering because Luo Guang was choosing the ability to integrate the Eternal Virus. The reason why he didn't speak was to accurately tell the system his choice. With Luo Guang's current thinking speed, this doesn't take much time, so Luo Guang just paused slightly when talking to the other party. The Eternal Virus has been analyzed. Do you want to process it according to the habits of the adapter? The system asked this question to facilitate Luo Guang in the future. Because this is the first time, the system also asked Luo Guang to confirm whether the habit data collected by the system based on Luo Guang's previous choice of integrating the virus is accurate, to prevent the system from recognizing the habits of the adapter that do not actually match Luo Guang's habits. No problem, Luo Guang confirmed and told the system. Then after some operation, the system conveyed the analyzed Eternal Virus ability to Luo Guang. First, Danger Perception. The Eternal Virus has a strong ability to perceive the environment, and has evolved an ability to foresee danger and detect subtle changes in the environment, but this ability has no relevant scientific basis. The data of this system is not enough to analyze the perception accuracy of this ability, but the adapter can turn this function on and off at any time. Second, Internal Organ Strengthening. The Eternal Virus can strengthen the strength of the adapter's internal organs and bones, but according to the system's prediction, internal organ strengthening will cause the internal organs to crystallize, which is not as good as the original when dealing with certain attacks, and it cannot avoid medical detection, which does not meet the adapter's hidden requirements. Please consider it carefully. Third, Bone Strengthening. Strengthening the hardness of the body's bones is different from internal organ strengthening. This strengthening is divided into 2 strengthening methods, crystallization and non-crystallization. According to sample experiments, the defensive effect of crystallized bones is 2/3 stronger than that of non-crystallized bones, but there is also no crystallization after crystallization. There is no way to avoid the problem of medical examination. Fourth, Cell Strengthening. This strengthening covers several aspects. The first aspect is to extend the life of cells. The second aspect is to reduce the daily consumption of cell energy, which can allow the host to persist for a longer time in the absence of water and food, and at the same time improve the energy utilization efficiency of the adapter, which is about 18.78%, thereby reducing the consumption of other abilities of the adapter that require energy support. 5. Eternal Toxin. Now the adapter can generate toxins produced by the crystallization of the Eternal Virus in the body. After testing, the virus is mainly targeted at human lungs. After poisoning, the poisoned person will quickly develop white lung symptoms and eventually die. It is worth noting that crystals will appear in the lungs of the corpses of poisoned people. Note, the strengthening of the above 2 and 3 points cannot be reversed after crystallization strengthening. It can only be restored by cleaning the crystallized internal organs, bones, and regrowing the internal organs, bones. These 5 abilities that can be fused are relatively easy to choose, so Luo Guang quickly made his choice. The only point to note is that Luo Guang did not choose to crystallize anything. Because the crystallized hearts of those zombies from World War II still could not stop the attack of bullets, he finally chose the 4 abilities of 1, 3, 4, and 5. Luo Guang valued the abilities of 1, 3, and 4 the most. Among them, the 4th ability was not valued because of the reason of prolonging life, but to reduce energy consumption, because after Luo Guang merged with the T-virus, he actually theoretically got a ticket to immortality. He gained several good abilities from the fusion of the Eternal Virus, but the Eternal Virus did not improve the physical attributes much. The system did not remind him, but Luo Guang took the initiative to check and confirm the attributes. As expected, the attributes did not improve. In addition to the abilities mentioned above, the system also extracted some information from the Eternal Virus, which were some memories engraved in the genes, and the memories of an ancient human. Because these eternal viruses did not have the conditions to be preserved outside the body in ancient times, the method used by the Third Empire of Prussia to obtain eternal viruses in Africa was actually to forcibly extract the eternal viruses from the eternal organisms that have survived from ancient times for their own use. Because time does not allow these intelligence, they are not very useful to Luo Guang now, so Luo Guang did not look at them carefully, but just took a quick look to confirm the situation. Back to the battle between Luo Guang and the 2 mysterious enemies. Luo Guang's ability to dodge bullets can be said to be unreasonable. After trying it for the first time, Luo Guang immediately gave this ability a good review, but this ability has a bad point, that is, when encountering danger, it will make you feel uncomfortable in a certain part of your body. Until now, Luo Guang is also full of curiosity about the identities of the 2 people in front of him. After obtaining new abilities, the fastest way to familiarize himself with the changes is to fight. Therefore, Luo Guang did not fight back with the assault rifle in his hand, but threw away the assault rifle in his hand while dodging bullets, and then rushed towards the enemy. This was exactly what the other party wanted. Although one of the enemies knew from her teammates that Luo Guang was very powerful, she herself was also a strength-enhanced one. She felt that she should not be weak, and it was just right for her to wrestle with Luo Guang. As long as she controlled the enemy and prevented Luo Guang from using his speed, her teammates could go around the enemy and use various neck-locking techniques to make the enemy lack oxygen. Therefore, the mysterious enemy holding the assault rifle also threw away his weapon and rushed forward, punching directly at Luo Guang's nose. Luo Guang immediately slapped his right hand to defend, and then after slapping the enemy's attack, he used the reaction force of slapping the enemy to counter-punch with his back. Luo Guang used his upper arm to lead his forearm, and at the same time used his waist to drive his forearm, exerting force from the inside to the outside, and slapped the enemy's helmet at a very fast speed. The powerful enemy tried to raise his left arm to defend, but he was still a step too slow. Luo Guang's back of his fist hit the right front of the enemy's helmet. The feeling was different from the previous hit on the enemy's lower cheek. There was only a click. Luo Guang saw that there were many cracks on the enemy's helmet, probably at the position of the eye mask, but it did not break like shatterproof glass. After the attack, Luo Guang wanted to pursue the victory, but another enemy had caught up. She was slightly weaker and still had a short knife in her hand. She stabbed from the lower left to the upper right, aiming at Luo Guang's right armpit. Luo Guang was protected by hardened armor in that area. Since Luo Guang's hardened armor was upgraded once, the weaknesses of those gaps were filled by Luo Guang, but there was also an important acupuncture point in the human body there, which was called Jiquan point in traditional Chinese medicine. Although the enemy's attack could not penetrate Luo Guang's armor, it was the weakest part of the skin after all, and Jiquan point was connected to a large number of blood vessels. As long as the power was in place, the arm would be numb. Of course, Luo Guang was not afraid of this move with his physical ability, but in order to develop good fighting habits, he decided to defend against this attack, so he bent down and turned sideways to distance himself, while kicking the flexible enemy over there with his right leg. He was one step faster than the enemy's short knife, and Luo Guang's right foot kicked the enemy's chest first. Luo Guang vaguely heard the sound of many subtle things breaking, which was slightly different from the sound of broken bones. The two were repelled by Luo Guang in a few moves, but they seemed to be unconvinced, so they took a breath and rushed up again. And Luo Guang keenly discovered the speed difference between the two opponents' movements and planned to use this as a breakthrough. Luo Guang blocked the left swing punch of the faster flexible enemy with his right hand, and at the same time, his right hand successfully pressed down on the opponent's left wrist. Then Luo Guang quickly turned around, and at the same time his left arm went around the outside of the opponent's left hand, and then went down to draw a circle around the opponent's left arm, bent his knees and bent his waist to coordinate the movements of his hands, passed through the enemy's left armpit, used his elbow joint to exert force, and slapped the opponent's chest with one palm, knocking the enemy to the ground. The agile enemy didn't react, and in the blink of an eye, he found himself on the ground, having difficulty breathing. Then Luo Guang didn't miss the opportunity to break the agile enemy's left arm, and untied the arm without hesitation, then rolled backwards quickly. At the moment when his waist touched the ground, Luo Guang stopped the rolling movement with his hands, and his legs, which had been retracted, directly went out to the sea, kicking the power enemy who was about to dive and hug Luo Guang. The attack of the power enemy was successfully avoided by Luo Guang, who rolled backwards without hesitation, leaving the power enemy alone. Faced with Luo Guang's counterattack, the enemy could only follow the force of the grappling action and use the cross-arm defense, but Luo Guang kicked out with both feet, directly breaking the enemy's forearm bone and kicking the enemy out at the same time. Then Luo Guang stood up and rushed to the flexible enemy who was holding his chest and staggering to his feet. This chapter is not over yet. Please click on the next page to continue reading the exciting content. There was no time to let the flexible enemy catch his breath. Luo Guang punched the abdomen with his left straight punch, and when the enemy was hit and bent over, his right palm slapped the enemy's chest again. At this time, the flexible enemy couldn't breathe, his eyes turned black, and he fainted directly. The enemy with a broken forearm on the other side stood up and saw his teammate fell to the ground. He called but no one responded. He thought his teammate was killed by Luo Guang, and he was very angry. But at this time, she was good at solving problems with fists, but her arms were injured and she couldn't fully exert her strength. She kept thinking about what to do in her mind. Luo Guang was not polite. He used his speed to bypass the enemy's attack, came to the back of the enemy, and directly went up to choke him. Then the mysterious enemy lost consciousness temporarily due to lack of oxygen and suffocation. It feels that the endurance attributes of these two people are a bit weak. Luo Guang looked at the two people who fell to the ground. One had a chest that gathered people's hearts, and the other had a chest that flattened the world. He said to himself, "Can this also support such strong power and speed?" It is speculated that the value of its strength or flexibility fluctuates around a human limit. It is speculated that the overall quality of the body cannot support long-term high-intensity exercise, and the enemy's body has not fully adapted to the ability to become stronger. The system added, "If you want to understand the specific situation, please collect blood from the adapter." Well, Luo Guang nodded, a little curious, took out the syringe in the backpack, pressed the disposable needle tube, and was about to give the flat-chested one an injection. Then Luo Guang found that the opponent's tights were a bit of a hindrance, so he took out his knife and spent some effort to successfully cut the surface of the opponent's tights. Luo Guang found that the opponent's tights seemed to be composed of several layers. The outer layer had a bulletproof function, and the second layer was a bit like fish scales. When it was crushed by hand, green liquid would flow out. After applying a little with his hand, the system analyzed that it had the components of a blood coagulant. In addition to these two layers, there was also a layer of stab-proof material inside. Luo Guang tore it open with force and finally drew blood. Begin analysis. Found drug components. Found unknown chemical components. Compare the database. No match. Perform analysis. Insufficient data, the analysis speed enters ultra-low speed state. This series of words from the system made Luo Guang stunned. This was the first time he encountered such a situation, but it was not a failure of analysis, but an ultra-low speed analysis, which was not bad. Let the system do its own work, and then it's time to reveal the enemy's face. Thinking of this, Luo Guang reached out to the mysterious enemy's helmet to see the enemy's true appearance. Buy reform materials when the food is available. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Evolution begins with Resident Evil. Author, Wei Tongmiao. Chapter 172. Chapter 168 deal with the apocalypse. After the two mysterious enemies were knocked down one by Luo Guang immediately checked the backpacks they carried to confirm the contents. Although he did not find any information about their organizations, Luo Guang found the research data of the Eternal Virus, which was a good harvest and saved his own screening time, so Luo Guang just accepted it with a smile. After packing up the research data that the enemy helped him get, Luo Guang was in a good mood, which saved him a lot of effort. After fighting with the two mysterious enemies in front of him, Luo Guang found that the abilities of the two people in a certain aspect of their bodies were far superior to ordinary people, but Luo Guang felt that the two people did not bring out their advantages, and gave people the feeling that they were just a little bit worse. Putting aside the fighting skills, these two people are a little weaker than themselves in Raccoon City. Speed and strength are not actually contradictory. People with great strength are not necessarily slow, and people with fast speed are not necessarily weak in strength. These two are complementary, but Luo Guang could not see this in the two enemies. For example, the agile enemy has fast movement and reaction speed, but she didn't use her speed when she exerted force, which resulted in the attack force not increasing much, so this enemy chose to use a sharp short knife when attacking. Luo Guang compared it in his mind. The attack force of the agile enemy was only about 7 to 8, but the agile mysterious enemy with more than 10 points of flexibility could actually integrate speed into his movements, and enhance the attack force through the high speed of the movement, so that the attack force value increased by 1 to 2 points. On the contrary, the mysterious enemy of the power type is the same. Although the body flexibility is not enhanced, it can also use its own strength to use the reaction force of the ground to make some fierce leg attacks. In actual combat, the opponent chose to speak with fists and did not use many leg techniques throughout the battle. Considering his own ability and Luo Guang was in a good mood, he did not abandon the two women in this place, but found a cart in the laboratory and took the two people to evacuate the underground fortress. Although Luo Guang brought two unconscious people with him, he successfully brought the two unconscious burdens back to the ground by sneaking from behind. Of course, part of the reason was that some zombies went to the command room of the underground fortress, which happened to be different from Luo Guang's evacuation route, so Luo Guang faced fewer enemies. After leaving the basement, Luo Guang went to the Prime Minister's office to clean up the surveillance records involving himself. Then Luo Guang stuffed the two people into a suitcase and a red, white, and blue plastic bag that he accidentally found, and went to a safe house prepared in advance near the administrative district. It was a small warehouse. Luo Guang let the two people out, and after confirming that the other party had not woken up, he stood up and set his eyes on the two mysterious people. The tights on the two women were connected to the fully enclosed helmets, and the connection point was at the necks of the two people. Of course, Luo Guang didn't know this, and he almost broke the enemy's neck when he took off the helmet. After seeing the face of the power enemy, Luo Guang couldn't help but sigh. He didn't expect that the organization behind these two mysterious enemies was actually the Apocalypse. No wonder Luo Guang always felt that the style of the other party's tights was a little familiar. In fact, it was a simplified version of the tights worn by the two enemies at this time. One of the two enemies was Wang Wei, whom Luo Guang had not seen for several months. Now it seems that Wang Wei has been saying that she can't come back because of something at home, probably because of this mission. If Wang Wei returned to the Red Claws at that time, it would be difficult to leave the Red Claws again. After all, she is not an ordinary team member. It is better to keep asking for leave. Anyway, Samus is also very tolerant of his subordinates. As long as there is a reasonable reason, you can ask for leave and leave. If the Apocalypse organization dispatches other people, this kind of incident involving biochemical crisis will easily encounter Wang Wei in the Red Claws, which will be difficult to deal with, and may affect Wang Wei's lurking mission. Fortunately, Luo Guang changed his appearance after returning to Berlin, making himself look like a Western European. Luo Guang didn't wait for the other party to wake up naturally. He took a bottle of water from his backpack and poured it on the head of the flat-chested man, waking him up directly. After waking up, the other party shivered, looked around, and saw the mask on Luo Guang's face. He woke up instantly and wanted to attack Luo Guang, but found that her hands and feet were bound, and she was not wearing a helmet, which made it impossible for her to contact other teammates to rescue her through the helmet. "What do you want to do, without the helmet?" The enemy's words did not sound like the processed distortion in the underground bunker, and sounded a bit pleasant. "You should thank me for dragging you out of the underground bunker, otherwise you would have been executed by those World War II zombies. I didn't ask you to save us. Then should I send you back? Or just kill you right there?" Although he was merciless, Luo Guang added in his heart that if he didn't know Wang Wei and wanted to find out more about the Apocalypse organization, he wouldn't bother to rescue them. "What do you want?" Wang Wei on the other side suddenly opened her eyes and asked. In fact, Wang Wei woke up earlier than her teammates, but pretended not to wake up and secretly tried to untie the tortoise shell binding on her body. Of course, Wang Wei failed in the end and couldn't even get the small blade hidden in the sole of his shoe. Luo Guang glanced at Wang Wei, who was a little embarrassed, and said, "Who are you in your organization?" This chapter is not over yet, please click on the next page to continue reading. This is a test by Luo Guang. "We won't tell you," the flat-chested man shouted. And Wang Wei didn't answer immediately, and put forward her own conditions, which was naturally to release them. Okay, Luo Guang had this plan, and of course he would put forward his own conditions before releasing them. Although Dr. Linda of the former Umbrella Institute said that she had prevented him from having his memory cleansed by researcher Greg, this made Luo Guang doubt that he had not lost his memory, and the amnesia might be an illusion created by the apocalypse for some reason. But Luo Guang didn't have any definite evidence after all, and the apocalypse didn't do anything bad to him, so Luo Guang didn't have the idea of tearing his face with the apocalypse now. "Our organization is for human evolution." Wang Wei changed the template of what he had said to Luo Guang before and said it again. Although the words were slightly different, the basic meaning was the same. "Our organization is called Apocalypse." Finally, Wang Wei said the alias of her organization's name. "This is a fake name, or an abbreviation," Luo Guang said directly. "We have all been caught by you, is there any need to lie?" A certain flat girl on the other side had just joined the Apocalypse organization not long ago. This was her first mission, so she didn't know a lot of things inside the organization. The flat girl twisted her body and shouted, but Luo Guang ignored her, and Wang Wei didn't respond to her teammates either. Because she was wearing a mask, Wang Wei couldn't confirm some of Luo Guang's psychological activities through micro-expressions, but she heard a little bit of certainty from the other party's response that Apocalypse was a fake name. "Do you know Apocalypse?" Because she couldn't confirm the other party's thoughts through expressions and actions, Wang Wei could only see if she could get some information through the conversation. In this regard, Luo Guang didn't hide it. In fact, in his idea, the other party should report a random organization name, and then Luo Guang would expose the other party, so as to gain an advantage in the conversation. Yes, I have heard of this name, and I also know that you have done a lot of things behind the scenes, so you can tell me something I don't know. First of all, besides you, are there other teammates in Berlin? Yes, according to the intelligence, the Eternal Virus has been transported out of the underground fortress. And at this time, they should have succeeded because it was outdated intelligence, Wang Wei said it. They? Your organization is mainly composed of women. Luo Guang found that the proportion of women in the other party's organization seemed to be a bit high. What? You look down on women? Women can hold up half the sky. The flat-chested one is just talkative. If Luo Guang didn't think that person might let slip and bring some real information to himself, he really wanted to strangle her directly. There are indeed more women in our organization. Men are more likely to be placed in various safe places and live peacefully. They only need to help our organization cultivate talents. Luo Guang always felt that Wang Wei's words were full of meaning, but he felt that he would not get the answer if he dug deeper, so he asked, "Did you get the Eternal Virus because there were your people among the Belter soldiers?" One of the staff officers under General Belter was the one we planted. His name is Hamas. The reason why we were able to sneak into the underground bunker was also because of his assistance. Originally, he should have met us within the specified time, and then led us to the research institute, and finally got the research materials and samples of the Eternal Virus without bloodshed. But as you can see, that person did not meet us. I really envy you for getting into the interior so easily. But it was Hamas who took me into the underground bunker. Luo Guang's words contained a lot of information. Wang Wei's first reaction was that Hamas was a multifaceted spy. In fact, Luo Guang knew the existence of him and others a long time ago, and judging from the fact that Hamas broke his promise to bring the enemy in front of him into the underground bunker, Hamas might be the spy sent by the other party to his organization. Wang Wei followed this line of thought and thought, like a wild horse running away from its reins, and soon found a reasonable explanation for herself, saying, "No wonder you didn't react at all when you heard the name of the apocalypse. You knew about our existence a long time ago, and you had other intentions when you talked to us in the underground fortress. At first, I wanted to keep my distance from you, and I told you right away that I was not one of those zombies, but you didn't even ask and attacked me with a gun." Luo Guang pointed at the flat-paneled woman next to him, saying that you are in this situation now because of your own fault. If we don't go back on time, our teammates will come to rescue us. You'd better let us go quickly. The flat-panel woman heard Luo Guang throw the pot at her, and immediately said a harmless threat. Wang Wei and the other person were wearing locators, and the locators were located behind their necks. "Stupid," Wang Wei whispered, "this kind of words should not be said at all. It is useless for the current situation, and it also alarms the other party and makes them prepare in advance." Just as Wang Wei thought, Luo Guang immediately realized that Wang Wei and the others might have locators on them, and said, "Thank you for reminding me. Hand over the locators on you, or I can do it myself." When Luo Guang said this, he deliberately used a vulgar tone that indicated he was plotting something bad and was going to do something shameful. "You," the flat girl heard the threat in Luo Guang's words and her face flushed with anger. Wang Wei also understood that the other party was not joking. Now he was in a situation where he was at the mercy of others. It would be better for him not to provoke the other party too much. He first told his teammates to shut up, and then said, "Xiao Tao, stop talking. The locator is behind the neck, with a zipper and a small brand on it. This chapter is not over yet, please click on the next page to continue reading." Hearing this, Luo Guang first went to look behind the person who called Xiao Tao, and indeed found the brand that the other party mentioned. Luo Guang directly broke it in half and indeed saw some electronic components from it. He thought that the technological level of some aspects of this world seemed to be no lower than that of the world before he crossed over. Your bodies have become so strong, is it because of some kind of drug enhancement? How do you know? Wang Wei asked immediately, but she knew that the other party would not answer, and then said, "That's right. Then let's make a deal. This guy who can't shut his mouth stays here, and you can leave first to find your teammates, and then come to redeem them." No matter how much information the other party said about the apocalypse, he couldn't confirm the truth, so he was too lazy to ask again. Luo Guang didn't know when the other people in Wang Wei's organization would arrive, which was why Luo Guang chose not to ask more. "Why don't I stay here and she go?" Wang Wei was worried that her teammates would leak the true information of the organization when they were alone with the enemy. Luo Guang shook his head, indicating that there was no room for negotiation, and continued, "Since you understand why I want to keep her, then you should go and come back quickly and bring the enhanced drug. The enhanced drug needs special methods to be used, and it also needs a certain amount of time to adjust. It's useless for you to get the drug. There is a base of the apocalypse in Berlin." So Wang Wei, who doesn't know how much the other party knows about his own organization's intelligence, did not refuse Luo Guang's request on the grounds that it takes time to prepare the drug. And this reason is not made up by Wang Wei. The effect of this enhanced drug is immediate, but if it is not adapted, adjusted, and integrated for a period of time, the body of the person injected with the drug will collapse because it cannot withstand the drug's power, and may even lead to death. It took Wang Wei at least more than a week to adapt, and the one called Xiaotao took nearly half a month. However, Luo Guang didn't care about this, because his physical fitness was not at the same level as Wang Wei and the others, and as long as he got the drug, Luo Guang could test the drug on himself and quickly verify the authenticity of the drug. As for the problem of intelligence, he really planned to find a breakthrough from the flat girl. That's not what you have to worry about. 2 tubes of strengthening potions with different strengthening directions, this is my request." Luo Guang put forward his request. "Don't listen to him, the other party may not keep his promise. If I don't want to keep my promise, do you think I need to let one person go first? I just wait for your teammates to come and negotiate the terms," Luo Guang retorted. Wang Wei quickly thought about whether the value of her teammates was worth it, and the risks of this transaction. As the captain of this mission, she still has this authority. After thinking again and again, she felt that this transaction was actually more profitable for her side. 2 hostages are always more valuable than 1 hostage, but will anyone really do a loss-making business? Constantly thinking about what benefits the other party can get from this transaction, Wang Wei did not think of a definite answer, and Luo Guang had begun to urge Wang Wei to make a decision. In the end, Wang Wei looked at Luo Guang and decided to accept the deal, but she had to make some arrangements to see if she could make a comeback. "Deal? Ah, it's a bit late tonight because I revised the plot of the whole chapter. Evolution begins with Resident Evil." Author, Wei Tongmiao. Chapter 173. Chapter 169. Deal done. War was spreading all over Berlin. Through the efforts of the Prussian airborne troops, the Loyalist army finally captured the media center. The Prussian Prime Minister immediately used wireless communications and the radio equipment carried by the airborne troops to remotely connect to the broadcasts throughout Berlin. After revising what Belt had done, he said it. "Of course, the most important point is to let the citizens of Berlin continue to stay at home and wait for the end of the war. The stay-at-home order in the past 2 days has made the citizens of Berlin feel dissatisfied. They are preparing to gather to protest and hold demonstrations, but when they heard the crackling of the war outside, those dissatisfactions were instantly swept away, and most of the citizens of Berlin stayed at home and dared not move. In fact, there is no need to emphasize the stay-at-home order again. As soon as the battle between the 2 sides started, most of the civilians in the urban area of Berlin immediately returned home without looking back. Unless they were in danger of their lives or were forcibly driven away by those soldiers, they did not intend to leave their homes. But these civilians were not feeling well either. They were worried and scared. They could only pray in their hearts that they would not be affected by the war and that their houses would not be blown up by shells while they were eating. Of course, not everyone went home so obediently. Some people were controlled by greed and took this opportunity to buy things for free. However, these robbers overlooked one thing. This was not the end of the world. For the people on both sides of the war, these acts of robbery were not allowed. As long as the military saw the occurrence of free purchases, they would immediately deal with it. It was okay for the army to suppress the rebellion. They would be temporarily detained and wait for trial after the war. But for the Belter soldiers, these parasites in the country had no value in living in the world and were often executed on the spot. As for the rich people, they left Berlin through various channels as early as when the stay-at-home order was announced, and gave themselves a vacation and went on vacation to other places. As long as the troops besieging Berlin are not bound by orders such as protecting Berlin's urban buildings and protecting the safety of citizens, the Belter soldiers without many heavy weapons cannot hold out for too long. In addition, their command system has been cleaned up by Luo Guang, so the loyalist army advances very quickly. Some loyal Belter soldiers have already received plans and instructions for this situation. In order to inherit General Belter's will, they choose to take off their uniforms at the right time, or pretend to be besieged loyalist soldiers who are unwilling to go along with General Belter, intending to lurk in the Prussian army again. Has your captain not contacted you yet? At this time, the Prime Minister of Prussia and Tanya were watching the show from the safe rear. This time, in addition to the soldiers who escaped with the Prime Minister of Prussia, the escorting troops came from various troops, in order to let them supervise each other and prevent the previous incident in the military camp outside Berlin from happening again. However, the generals leading the team are all members of the X organization, so the Prime Minister of Prussia is still relatively relieved. After hearing what the Prime Minister of Prussia said, Tanya looked at her phone and said, "No reply yet." Alas, it seems that he failed in his mission. The Prime Minister of Prussia sighed and expressed his condolences. However, Tanya did not believe that Luo Guang would fail, and said, "It's too early to draw a conclusion now. I'll send a text message to ask." As soon as she said it, Tanya immediately sent a text message to Luo Guang. Almost at the same time as the text message was sent, Tanya received Luo Guang's reply. She looked up at the Prime Minister of Prussia and said, "There is a reply." The captain said that the Prime Minister's office has been cleared. Belt hid in the underground bunker. He can't solve it alone, so he asked the Prime Minister to send your troops to support him quickly, otherwise Belt will send soldiers to rescue Belt. It's the Prussian army. After correcting Tanya's words, the Prime Minister of Prussia issued the latest instructions to the messenger on standby in the office. As soon as Luo Guang sent Wang Wei away, he received a text message from Tanya. Seeing the worry in Tanya's text message, Luo Guang edited a message and sent it back. Although Luo Guang said that he had solved the enemy in the Prime Minister's office and forced Belt to hide in the underground bunker, he was not guarding the entrance and exit of the underground bunker at this time. However, even if the Prime Minister of Prussia asked about this, Luo Guang was not afraid. He just said that he could not stop it alone, so he retreated. Anyway, he was not a Prussian soldier, and helping them so much was considered to be a benevolent act. Luo Guang looked at the enemy who was twisting his body on the ground and asked, "What's your name?" The enemy did not answer, staring at Luo Guang with a red face. "Don't move, calm down and you'll be fine, chopping block." "Who is the chopping block?" "My name is Xiao Tao." "Don't you have a specific name?" "I haven't got it yet. I was supposed to have my own name after this mission, but because of you, I may have to delay graduation again." "Again?" "Graduation." Luo Guang was curious about what the other party said. Why did the other party's words sound so much like a college student who failed his graduation thesis? These things are not confidential, as long as the specific location and name are not revealed, so Xiao Tao answered, "Graduation from the training camp, because many front-line people were wiped out by the guy named Wesker before, so there was a shortage of manpower, so I was temporarily recruited to perform the mission. Originally, my grades in the training camp were not good and my graduation was delayed. This mission was also a special exam prepared by the training camp to allow me to graduate smoothly. They also found outstanding graduates to lead me. The other party was like a dam releasing floodwaters, and he spoke out his story all at once, with tears in his eyes and feeling very aggrieved. This chapter is not over yet, please click on the next page to continue reading the exciting content. On the other side, Luo Guang did not have the slightest sympathy. Instead, he understood from the other party's words that every hand was now very important to the Apocalypse organization, and he was more confident about this transaction. Xiao Tao, right? What are you going to do with the eternal virus? This is the secret of our organization. If her hands were not tied, she would definitely cover her mouth with both hands to prevent herself from leaking the secret. Luo Guang looked at the other party and said, "You know to shut up now." Me, Xiao Tao was very upset. It was because she could not tell the timing of speaking and often made mistakes in judgment in the scenario simulation that she was unable to graduate. Those in the same class as her had graduated for more than a year. Then tell me about your training camp, you can always tell it, right? Luo Guang remembered that Wang Wei had said that he also graduated from that training camp. Xiao Tao silently recited the confidentiality code in her heart, and then said, "Nothing special, it's not much different from military training. You haven't graduated yet, so you're obviously not suitable for this kind of thing. Won't your organization transfer you away? I also think I'm not suitable for this kind of work, but it can't be changed. In fact, our organization will judge what kind of work each person should do based on their innate genes. This is a mandatory assignment. Because of this, the instructors in the training camp always think that I have talent, but they just haven't found the right direction for me." Destiny plan. Hearing Xiao Tao's words, Luo Guang immediately thought of such a plan. It was proposed by Speaker Durandal in a Gundam movie. It includes a series of measures such as assigning jobs to everyone in society according to their genes. The goal is to establish a social management system that prioritizes genetic factor information. How do you know? If Wang Wei was here, she would definitely pretend not to know, but Xiao Tao obviously didn't have this cunning. When she heard Luo Guang's words, her first reaction was that the information of her organization had been leaked. Although the names are the same, the fate plan of the apocalypse is actually different from what Luo Guang thought. You don't need to know this. Luo Guang reacted quickly, looking like he was planning a strategy, and asked, "It seems that the genetic engineering technology level of your organization is far beyond this era." At this time, Xiao Tao did not dare to speak, and closed her mouth tightly, not daring to say anything, and turned her head to the side. For the next half an hour, Luo Guang waited for Wang Wei while teasing Xiao Tao, but the result was that Xiao Tao was very angry, and the consequences were very serious. Luo Guang could no longer get any useful information from the other party. Xiao Tao just kept her mouth shut and stared at Luo Guang fiercely. Suddenly, Luo Guang felt a slight vibration on his mobile phone. It should be a text message from Tanya, but he did not take out his mobile phone to check, because a sound of knocking on the shutter door suddenly came. It was Wang Wei who came to Luo Guang's place with the strengthening potion to redeem people. "You came so quickly," Luo Guang said as he looked at the three people who came in after knocking on the door a few times and pulled up the shutter door. After Wang Wei came in, he scanned the area and confirmed that the environment here had not changed. Xiao Tao, who was lying on the ground next to Luo Guang, was still the same as before, but he didn't know why Xiao Tao was pursing her lips tightly, her face flushed, and staring at him fiercely. However, there was no sign of Xiao Tao's clothes being torn, so she didn't seem to have been violated. This made Wang Wei feel a little sorry, otherwise he could easily collect the other party's life essence. Having said that, Wang Wei only thought of such a possibility, and didn't really want Xiao Tao to suffer that kind of thing. After all, we still need to be efficient in doing things. Oh, then your other teammates should have successfully obtained the eternal virus. Hearing Luo Guang's words, the two people following Wang Wei took a fighting stance and looked very wary of Luo Guang. It should be that Wang Wei had said something to the two people on the way here. Wang Wei naturally noticed the actions of the two people behind him and said, if your goal is to destroy the eternal virus, then you are going to fight with the 3 or 4 of us again. No, I've been busy for several days, it's time to rest. And you shouldn't bring the eternal virus with you. Luo Guang shook his head. Indeed, they had already handed over the container of the eternal virus to the contact personnel of the Apocalypse organization, so they wouldn't be stupid enough to bring such an important thing. In order to help Xiao Tao graduate successfully, the 3 of them had decided to keep it a secret on the way here. Naturally, Wang Wei was also captured, so this matter was also good for Wang Wei, but if Wang Wei knew what information Xiao Tao had leaked to Luo Guang, she would definitely not do this, because if the information was leaked, the nature of the whole thing would be different. Wang Wei nodded and opened the metal suitcase in her hand. There were 2 test tubes of medicine lying quietly in it, in red and blue colors. According to Wang Wei's introduction, the red one enhances strength, while the blue one enhances flexibility. Luo Guang gently pushed the cart over, controlling the force well, and the cart stopped right in front of Wang Wei. One hand pays the money, the other hand delivers the goods. Wang Wei stared at Luo Guang and said. Luo Guang shook his head and said, don't waste time. I showed so much kindness before. Now it's time for you to repay me. Captain, the person behind Wang Wei shouted. Wang Wei didn't look back and said directly, if something goes wrong, I will take all the responsibility. After that, Wang Wei closed the metal briefcase, put it on the trolley, and pushed it back in front of Luo Guang. Wang Wei's force control was not as good as Luo Guang's. Luo Guang still had to stop the trolley himself, and then open the metal briefcase in front of Wang Wei. Luo Guang was wearing gloves and didn't worry about the metal briefcase being poisonous. As for bombs and other things, don't forget that Luo Guang has Xiao Tao next to him. Perhaps some people have questions, what if this metal briefcase is a remote-controlled bomb? And Luo Guang's next action gave the answer. Luo Guang used the hardened armor ability to make a straw directly out of sight of others, and then took a sip of the red potion in front of Wang Wei and the others, and after confirming that it matched the ingredients analyzed by the system, he drank the red tube in one breath. Not only Wang Wei, but others were also stunned, especially Xiao Tao beside Luo Guang, who was so surprised that she couldn't close her tightly closed mouth. This tastes a bit spicy and not good to drink. After saying that, Luo Guang took another sip of the blue tube, and after confirming that there was no problem, he drank it all in one go. Because of surprise, Wang Wei and the others couldn't say anything to stop it. It was at this time that Wang Wei finally understood why the other party didn't seem to worry about her giving fake medicine, nor worried about the metal suitcase hiding remote-controlled bombs or locators, because the other party didn't intend to take the metal suitcase at all. Luo Guang licked his lips and commented, this potion for enhancing flexibility tastes better, refreshing like mint. You actually drank this strengthening potion directly? You are wasting it. Xiao Tao had been holding back her words, feeling very uncomfortable. Seeing Luo Guang doing this, she finally couldn't help it. The strengthening potion is for injection. If you drink it directly, you can't absorb much. This is not something you should care about. Luo Guang said this, bending down and picking up Xiao Tao. Hey, where are you touching? Luo Guang ignored the other party's protest, casually threw Xiao Tao on top of the metal suitcase on the cart, and said to Wang Wei, this person is here, you can come and get it. After that, Luo Guang walked backwards and left through a small door in the warehouse. Captain, should we chase him? He drank 2 tubes of strengthening potion and acted as if nothing had happened. According to the evaluation standards of the organization, the physical fitness and genes of this enemy are at least S level. Wang Wei shook his head and said, S level people are not something we, the top A level people, can deal with, and we are not prepared this time. Let's forget it. The situation of this mission is already bad enough, so let's not make things complicated. After saying that, Wang Wei walked over to untie the tortoise shell binding on Xiao Tao, but in her mind she was thinking about the other party's words about rest. She always felt that she seemed to have heard that tone somewhere before. It seems that I have a cold, so I quickly took a pill and went to sleep. Good night. Evolution begins with Resident Evil. Author, Wei Tongmiao. Chapter 174. Chapter 170 Berlin Aftermath. The second batch of airborne troops has landed around the Chancellery and successfully occupied the Chancellery without much resistance. It seems that it is indeed as your captain said, much stronger than I thought. It's just that they didn't find your red claws in the Chancellery. After the Prime Minister of Prussia told Tanya the intelligence, he saw that Tanya didn't seem nervous and said, "Aren't you worried about any accidents?" After all, the Prime Minister of Prussia was not from the military, and he didn't have a three-dimensional impression of Luo Guang's ability to break through the Chancellery alone, so he said so. However, from this incident, the Prime Minister of Prussia felt that he could recommend a few talents that could be used to the X organization. Therefore, in order to win people's hearts, he would bring Tanya with him and tell her about Luo Guang at any time. Leon and Clausa were in the military camp's medical room. Leon was injured and lying down, and for safety, Clausa was staying with Leon to protect the wounded. Tanya was still worried, but she didn't show it. She was calm when she spoke to the Prime Minister of Prussia, saying, "Don't worry, he is alone, it's normal that he can't hold on, so I asked you to go over and support him." "You mean he was forced to evacuate the Prime Minister's office, which means that Belt may have successfully broken through." The Prime Minister of Prussia was very worried that Belt would suddenly become a terrorist, causing great trouble to Prussia and becoming his biggest worry. Tanya felt that the Prime Minister of Prussia was trying to shift the blame for letting Belt escape to the Red Claws, and emphasized again, "Who told you to put the task of the 1st Airborne Force at the media center?" But even if Belt really ran away, he couldn't run far, and I think the probability of Belt escaping alone is not high. What's the basis? The Prime Minister of Prussia didn't want to shift the blame. His previous words were just a possibility based on the situation. Tanya replied, "Because the underground bunker has something very important, so important that he must use such a complicated method to expose this underground bunker." "You mean the eternal virus?" The Prime Minister should have received intelligence that Umbrella Corporation sells biological viruses and biological weapons on the black market, right? Although Tanya said so, after the Amazon rainforest incident, the auction host, under the instruction of Luo Guang, exaggerated the good things done by Umbrella Corporation to the public, causing many people in the black market to refuse to serve Umbrella Corporation. Of course, when the benefits are in place, there will always be people who choose to take risks, so Umbrella's business in the black market has not completely disappeared, but now buyers seem to prefer to buy biological viruses or biological weapons from Umbrella researchers who have defected. The Prime Minister of Prussia has naturally received such important intelligence. Although the black market in Berlin is not large, there are some biological viruses and biological weapons in circulation, and the Prime Minister of Prussia will report this information to Organization X and let Organization X send other people to buy it, and he will not participate in it. I have received it. I understand what you mean. You mean that it is useless for Belt to escape alone, but it will be different if he takes the eternal virus, right? Neither the Prime Minister of Prussia nor Tanya knew that the eternal virus was very difficult to preserve, so they made this inference. Yes, I will contact my captain about the situation. Prime Minister, you should hurry up, otherwise no one knows whether that madman has the means to die with Berlin. Tanya took out her mobile phone and typed a message, ending the topic with the Prime Minister of Prussia. After receiving Tanya's text message, Luo Guang did not let Tanya wait too long. After leaving the warehouse and confirming that Wang Wei and the others had not caught up, Luo Guang quickly came to a safe place where no one was, then took out his mobile phone and called Tanya. "Tanya, how is the situation over there? Luo, are you safe now?" "It's safe for the time being. I found a place to hide and wait for the Berlin thing to end." Luo Guang was on the rooftop of an apartment, enjoying the breeze and eating snacks, looking very leisurely, and said, "Okay, give me an address, and I'll ask the Prime Minister to send someone to pick you up." "Is he willing?" "He owes us the Red Claws and it's not a difficult task," Tanya thought, and said. The Prime Minister of Prussia was listening to Tanya's words, but he didn't say anything. Because Tanya was right, he or the whole of Prussia owed a favor to the Red Claws. Without the help of Tanya and the other two, the Prime Minister of Prussia might not have escaped. Luo Guang actually had a share of the credit for escaping from the military camp, but no one, including Luo Guang, knew what kind of help Luo Guang brought to Tanya and others who broke out later when he broke out of the military camp. If the Prime Minister of Prussia and other senior officials of the Prussian government were caught by the soldiers sent by Belt in the military camp outside Berlin, then whether Belt placed his own people in important government positions or took the opportunity to establish a military government led by himself, he could complete his plan of stealing the sky and changing the day, and then he could devote the whole country's strength to researching the eternal virus and transforming all the people of the country into eternal creatures. As the underground fortress was occupied by the loyal soldiers, various intelligence was reported to the Prime Minister of Prussia again. Bert and their staff were killed, all samples of the eternal virus were destroyed, all eternal virus researchers died, and important research data were cleared. The Prime Minister of Prussia held the report in his hand, with an uncontrollable tone in his tone. He was so angry that he asked, "Don't tell me that your military did these things." This chapter is not over, please click on the next page to continue reading. Of course not. According to the regulations, you are the Supreme Commander now. We dare not disobey orders. The Minister of Defense also received the report and replied, "It seems that some forces have appeared in this incident. We all made a wedding dress for someone else." When the Prime Minister of Prussia saw the report, the first thought that came to his mind was that the destruction of the samples and data of the eternal virus was done by the Red Claws, the anti-biochemical force. But then he thought about it, the Red Claws, there were only 4 people in the army, and they all had traces to follow, and the Prime Minister of Prussia and other ministers present would not believe that one person could capture the entire underground fortress. That's why the Minister of Defense said that it was possible. Other forces were involved. Hurry up and investigate. How is the situation in Gaul? Then the Prime Minister of Prussia looked at his Minister of Foreign Affairs. Because the information about Berlin was leaked from nowhere, surrounding countries expressed their willingness to help Prussia solve domestic problems for the safety of their diplomats. Therefore, the Prussian foreign minister has been busy dealing with the situation since he escaped from the predicament. Among these unreasonable requests, the country of Gaul had the most fun. It's still jumping around like that, and the troops on the other side's border also made some small moves. Although the border guards said that the Gauls probably just wanted to make us sick, I still asked them to be ready to fight at any time, the Minister of Defense responded. The Minister of Foreign Affairs added, "As for our side, the diplomats stationed in Paris have already protested and are preparing to tell a few Gallic jokes on TV. Whether it is the military operation in Berlin or the diplomatic confrontation, these matters have nothing to do with Luo Guang and the others." Not long after Luo Guang left Berlin and joined Tanya, they boarded the plane back to the base. As for the 4 of them being able to leave here so smoothly, it was naturally Luo Guang who used his strength and borrowed the power from organization. I took a trip to the secret laboratory. Before he could find suitable talents to study biochemical viruses, Luo Guang planned to stay in the nest and let the Donald family build a biochemical virus research institute for him. However, he also had to ask the head of the Donald family, Corpus Donald Hicks, to build a biochemical virus research institute. Introduce his current heirs well. It's not that the head of the Corpus family is in any physical condition right now. It's just that Corpus informed himself that his heirs had also been successfully vaccinated with the T. Veronica virus, but their bodies had some rejection reactions. According to the instructions given by Luo Guang, the inheritance people were temporarily frozen, waiting for Luo Guang to return. The head of the Corpus family was using the power of organization. During the phone call between Luo Guang and Corpus, they also heard a piece of gossip. Derek C. Simmons, the current spokesperson of Organization X, seemed to be obsessed with a mysterious woman and paid less attention to organization. This gave the Donald family the opportunity to carry out various actions secretly. Luo Guang laughed when he heard the news. He suddenly thought of something and asked Corpus to help pay attention to a person named Carla Radames. Kara is a talented girl, but unfortunately she meets someone unkind, and she falls in love with Simmons, who is obsessed with King Ada, causing her to eventually fall into the whirlpool of love and hate, and her own existence. But the problem now is that Luo Guang himself and Carla have nothing to do with each other. How to bring each other over to serve him in the end? He doesn't have a plan in mind yet, so he can only make preliminary preparations first. Ah, I'm finally back. Leon, who was sitting in the airplane cabin, looked at the Red Claw base outside and stretched out with one hand. Luo Guang smiled and replied, "You should take this time to rest. You are the only one injured among the four of us." The location of Lion's injury happened to be on his left arm. After examination, it was found that there would be no sequelae, so Luo Guang and the others were not too worried about Lion's injury. Krause on the other side didn't know what was going on with Tanya and the others, so he joined the conversation for the first time and said, "That's true. If he could be more careful and alert, there would be no need to swoop in to protect him." That Prime Minister. As an agent directly under the president of the Lighthouse country, Leon pouted and said, "That's to protect VIPs. That's what the instructor taught me when I was training. You are right to do this, but in your direction, you can clearly predict in advance the location suitable for the enemy to ambush and give early warning, but you have no warning about that location." Clausa defeated Prussia in Lyon when he was the Prime Minister. He helped Lyon deal with the sneak attack enemy, so he was relatively familiar with the whole situation. "Could you please Clausa teach Leon this part of the technique?" Tanya asked. Krause showed a shameless smile and said, "Of course, Leon is affiliated with the Special Operations Command, but we can't let him lose our face. Please spare me." Leon had just escaped from the hellish training. When he thought that Krauser, who was more powerful than his former instructor, was going to train him personally, he showed a bitter face. Everyone chatted and got off the plane. Because most of the weapons on everyone were left in Berlin, Luo Guang and his team did not need to return any equipment and went directly to Samu's office. After listening to everyone's brief report, Samus asked, "Does it mean that we didn't get any information about the Eternal virus this time?" This chapter is not over yet. Please click on the next page to continue reading the exciting content. After learning about what happened in Berlin, some people behind the Red Claws called Samus at the same time and asked Samus to give orders to the Red Claws, who were on a mission in Berlin to seek opportunities to get the Eternal virus and its research materials. Luo Guang and his team had not received this task, so naturally Samus blocked it for Luo Guang and his team. "Sorry," Tanya apologized directly. She knew that this would make Samus difficult, and the others also shook their heads. "I understand. You guys go back and take a rest first and hand in the report," Samus said, and issued an order to expel them. She still had to find a way to get rid of some people above. Luo Guang did not turn around, saying that he still had something to say to Samus. Krause looked at Luo Guang's actions, his eyes flashed, and he didn't know what he was thinking. He followed Tanya and Leon, who were full of curiosity, and left Samu's office. Samus looked up at Luo Guang, put down the pen in his hand, and waited for Luo Guang's words. There is still something about the eternal virus. Luo Guang took out the diary that his father had given him, opened a page, and handed it to Samus. Was the place where the eternal virus was discovered in North Africa. Samus, do you remember what we collected about Umbrella Corporation? What do you mean? Samus heard Luo Guang's words, and for a moment he didn't think of why Luo Guang suddenly mentioned Umbrella Corporation. The origin of the Umbrella virus is also in Africa, but in the West African region. After Luo Guang said this, Samus understood and confirmed, do you want the big guys behind the red claws to send people to Africa, and then kill with a borrowed knife to eliminate Umbrella's forces in West Africa? Yes, but in this case, we need to modify the information about the eternal virus first. Luo Guang nodded, which is why he wanted to talk to Samus about this matter alone. The fewer people know about this kind of thing, the better. I really can't adjust recently, and it's probably hard to have the opportunity to update at noon. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Evolution begins with Resident Evil. Author, Wei Tongmiao. Chapter 175. Chapter 171. Cliff R. O'Brien. This hotel is pretty good, isn't it? Luo Guang and Jill were sitting in a room at the Watson Hotel in New York, on a sofa next to the French window, sipping red wine. The Watson Hotel in New York opened in 1997, not long ago, so the facilities are relatively new, and it has passed the initial stage. Now the facilities and services are relatively mature, and it is comfortable to live in. Of course, the most important point for Luo Guang is that the hotel is located in a quiet residential area, a quiet corner in the bustling metropolis. Luo Guang, who has strict requirements for sleeping environment, is a perfect fit. The surrounding environment is not bad either, close to many famous attractions in New York, such as the famous Carnegie Hall and Lincoln Center, which are only 3 blocks away. Although Jill does not seem to be the kind of person who likes to buy, the surrounding stores such as Tiffany and Nike City are all available. As long as Jill wants, Luo Guang is always ready to accompany Jill to the battlefield to go shopping. Indeed. And your massage technique has improved a lot. I feel that the fatigue accumulated recently has disappeared. Luo Guang's massage technique has improved because of the Tai Chi skills that he has recently engraved in the eternal virus gene in the system. Luo Guang transformed it into a massage technique for Jill. Although it is called wine tasting, Luo Guang and Jill are not really good at tasting, so they are both drinking expensive red wine in big gulps. There is no one else here, otherwise someone who knows wine will definitely stand up and accuse Luo Guang and the others of squandering food, and then teach Luo Guang and the others a good lesson. I learned it secretly for you. You haven't stopped recently. Don't work too hard. I feel bad. As he said, Luo Guang poured half a glass of red wine for Jill and himself. The alcohol content of this red wine is 13.5 degrees. For Luo Guang and Jill's current physique, it is basically boiled water. However, at this time, Luo Guang and Jill both felt that they were a little drunk, not because of the wine, but just for each other. Hearing Luo Guang's words, Jill nodded. This time the two reunited in New York City, the lighthouse country. Luo Guang was on vacation, while Jill came with a mission. After receiving Jill's call, Luo Guang took the earliest flight to New York as soon as possible, and then waited for Jill to fly from Europe at the airport. After picking up Jill, Luo Guang took Jill to eat, drink and have fun in the bustling city of New York. Here Luo Guang would like to thank his ex-organization liaison Susanna Bell for her intelligence support and for helping Luo Guang design a date route. Luo Guang did not ask Jill how she felt about today, but from Jill's reaction, Jill should be satisfied with today's date. It's just that Jill is different from ordinary girls. She likes things that are more exciting. Compared with the Ferris wheel, Jill likes the bungee jumping machine and roller coaster more. Luo Guang also likes it, especially the ball squeezed and deformed from the safety device when the bungee jumping machine is rapidly descending. Although Luo Guang has seen the naked version, he is also open to the artistic version of the half-covered face. Back to business. While Luo Guang was dealing with the incident in Berlin, Jill, Chris, and others did not slack off, but did not continue to cause trouble for Umbrella Corporation. Instead, they focused on another thing, which was the preparation for the establishment of BSAT. Establishing an organization is not just about raising a flag and shouting a few slogans. For example, Luo Guang used the identity of Wusong to establish GIMZ. In addition to the things mentioned above, there are still many things to do. Report to the departments of certain countries, find a good country to set up a company for tax activities, and greet people in the black market through Hank's old lover Susan's channel, etc., and various troublesome things. Luo Guang was quite busy during that time because there was no other manpower to help, but after going through that period and recruiting a lot of people, Luo Guang could finally be a hands-off shopkeeper. However, the hands-off shopkeeper is only temporary. Luo Guang does not want his GIMZ organization to fall to the level of BSAA in the Resident Evil game, where the Dragon Slayer becomes the dragon. Back to Jill's mission in New York this time, she was going to meet someone, that is, Cliff R. O'Brien, who had been in contact with Jill and others before. Before, O'Brien and Jill had always communicated through emails, and provided Jill and others with a lot of intelligence information about Umbrella. However, because Umbrella is in a bad situation now, most of the facilities involving biological viruses and biological weapons have evacuated personnel and equipment, so Jill and others often travel thousands of miles to a certain place, but only see facilities without people. Of course, Jill and others are not without gain. At least they can clean up the zombies that were deliberately released in those facilities and prevent the biological virus from accidentally spreading to the outside world. Although Jill and others have no complaints about this, after all, the information brought by O'Brien is difficult to obtain on their side, which is better than investigating everywhere and trying their luck, but O'Brien doesn't think so. He thinks that what he found is all expired information, which has caused everyone to work in vain. Because in O'Brien's view, only solving the zombies is a temporary solution, not a fundamental solution, and it does not have much effect on curbing the biochemical crisis. At this moment, O'Brien felt for the first time regretful for wasting his time and meaninglessly holding a nominal position in the World Pharmaceutical Federation. However, O'Brien was not the kind of person to back down because of a slight setback. Instead, he worked harder and used his small and transparent role in the Global Pharmaceutical Federation to successfully obtain important information. This chapter is not finished yet, please click on the next page to continue reading the exciting content. Because this information is very important, O'Brien hopes to have a face-to-face conversation, and at the same time, he also hopes to meet like-minded comrades, so that he can have the motivation to continue fighting alone in the Global Pharmaceutical Federation. It just so happened that after discussion, Jill felt that the time was about right and the two parties could start further cooperation. When it comes to further cooperation, Chris and O'Brien both have the idea of establishing an anti-biological and chemical force organization, and they hit it off. However, before that, it was necessary to deepen the trust between the two parties, and the easiest way was to have face-to-face talks several times, so Jill was sent to New York to meet with O'Brien. Originally, Uncle Barry, who had more social experience, was supposed to come to perform the task, but because her daughter was sick, Uncle Barry took leave to go back to find his wife and daughter. Although Barry's daughter Moira Burton was accompanied by her mother, Barry loved his daughter so much that he decided to go back and confirm the safety of his wife and daughter's surroundings. Therefore, this task fell to relatively good people. Investigating Jill's head. Although Uncle Barry was anxious to go back, he didn't just drop the matter and leave with just one word. He still gave Jill a suggestion, which was to bring Luo Guang with her to support her. After Luo Guang found out about this, he specially thanked Uncle Barry for allowing Gil to spend time with him. Otherwise, Gil would only focus on the mission and would not even think that Luo Guang might have completed the mission in Berlin and returned to the lighthouse country. Uncle Barry's suggestion was not only for this reason, but also because he wanted O'Brien to get to know and win over Luo Guang, the captain of the Red Claw Special Operations Team. The Red Claws with an official background are strong enough in intelligence collection, logistical support, etc. If O'Brien can get Luo Guang's support, then he and others may participate in the biohazard incident as a foreign aid assistance force, or perhaps the reporter left some low-intensity biohazard incidents to Chris and others with a smaller number of people to solve. In any case, it would be beneficial to the anti-biohazard organization that was about to be established. The only problem is to protect the autonomy of your organization and not to be used as a weapon all the time. Uncle Barry settled the matter. He not only talked about it with O'Brien, but also talked about it with Luo Guang, and said that Luo Guang could get to know each other if he thought it was appropriate. As for Jill, Uncle Barry didn't say anything. He was worried that after telling this, Jill would protect her boyfriend and refuse to let O'Brien use his relationship to get to know Luo Guang, which would affect Luo Guang's objective judgment. It's peaceful here. Gil looked at the scenery outside the window. Although it was already dark, this rare tranquility was what Gil liked. It was not the tranquility full of death in Raccoon City, but a warm tranquility. Although Jill's insomnia has been cured, she still likes a quiet sleeping environment, and her requirements in this regard have basically been the same as those of Luo Guang. Yes, Luo Guang said, but he did not look out the window, but looked at Jill. Gil noticed Luo Guang's gentle gaze and was stunned for a moment. Then he smiled slightly, picked up the wine glass, stood up, sat on Luo Guang's lap, took a sip of red wine, and kissed him. "Good morning, I'm not late, am I?" O'Brien came to the coffee shop of New York's Watson Hotel as agreed. Looking at the bottomless coffee in the coffee cups in front of Luo Guang and Luo Guang, his expression changed and he quickly apologized. "I'm sorry, I'm late." "Very punctual, not late," Luo Guang said after shaking hands with O'Brien and looking at the electronic watch on the inside of his wrist. Wearing Luo Guang's electronic watch on the inside of his wrist was a habit he had developed in previous battles. It prevents his position from being exposed due to the reflection of the watch during battle, and also makes it easier for him to check the time while holding a gun. Gil, who was sitting on the other side, stood up, shook hands with O'Brien, and said, "We stayed here last night, so we just came early." Jill noticed that O'Brien had his eyes on the coffee cups in front of them for a moment, and explained. "So that's it." O'Brien took off the black and red peaked cap he was wearing, placed it on the seat next to him, waved to the waiter, and ordered a cup of freshly brewed espresso. This black and red peaked cap was a sign of recognition when the two parties met, because Jill didn't know what O'Brien looked like, but for O'Brien, Jill's information was easy to check. He knew Jill's appearance and characteristics, and this coffee there were only two people in the hall, Luo Guang, so O'Brien immediately found the person he wanted to meet. In Luo Guang's opinion, O'Brien's appearance is at least 99% similar to what he has seen in biochemical games. The only difference is that the O'Brien in front of him is a bit unkempt and not as capable as Luo Guang's impression. After the waiter walked away a little, O'Brien asked, "Is it safe here?" Luo Guang replied, "It is much safer than the battlefield." At least Luo Guang confirmed that this place was not the stronghold of Organization Stronghold. Hearing Luo Guang's words, O'Brien did not question it and introduced himself. "My name is Cliff R. O'Brien, a consultant to the Global Pharmaceutical Federation. Jill Valentine is now an anti-biochemical fighter." Since this was a meeting between Gil and O'Brien, Luo Guang asked Gil to introduce himself first. Luo Guang, a member of the Red Claw Army, is here to prevent my little cutie from being deceived by bad guys. Uncle Barry had already told the other party about Luo Guang, so O'Brien was prepared and was not surprised by Luo Guang's identity. Hearing Luo Guang's words, Jill's expression remained unchanged, but her hand pinched the soft flesh of Luo Guang's waist where O'Brien could not see it, expressing her protest to Luo Guang, but Luo Guang naturally endured it silently. O'Brien knew that things with the Red Claws were not settled overnight. This visit was just to get acquainted with each other. The main thing was to form an anti-biochemical organization with Jill and the others. Therefore, he did not ask anything about Luo Guang's identity and answered directly, "I understand your concerns. In fact, I feel the same way. That's why this exchange happened, isn't it?" Jill replied. "Yes, but I can't even find anyone in the Global Pharmaceutical Federation who can communicate this," O'Brien said with a wry smile. "Because they don't hold a false position, right?" Luo Guang's words were suspected of mocking O'Brien as a dispensable person in the Global Pharmaceutical Federation. After he said this, O'Brien did not answer the call. "This is your espresso, sir." The waiter came to the table and presented O'Brien with a cup of steaming coffee. "Thanks. Bring me another cup of coffee. This time, use a more sour coffee bean. Let your barista recommend it to me." "How about you, Jill?" "I don't need it. Please give me a glass of warm water." After the waiter left, O'Brien said, "It doesn't matter whether the job is for free. There are people like me who hold false jobs. They don't care about this, as long as someone pays them and allows them to take a nap at their job, read the newspaper and drink. Coffee will do." Luo Guang couldn't hear any special emotion in O'Brien's words. At most, he was a little disappointed. He didn't know if it was because the waiter came and interrupted O'Brien's anger when he was ridiculed. But there should be more and more people paying attention to the biohazard incident recently, and we will find more like-minded people, Gill said. This is not necessarily the case. They may not necessarily come forward. Instead, they will just sit at home and hope that someone else will come forward, preferably the kind of fool who doesn't get paid. As soon as O'Brien said this, Jill nodded with deep feeling. She also encountered these bad things when investigating Umbrella Company, and said, "Yes, I did the same in my previous investigation, and I want our help. They don't want to pay a penny to solve the zombie dogs that appeared near the village, and they don't dare to help us search in the unfamiliar woods, so we, the honest people, can help them solve the problem for free and quickly." "Jill, don't you have a set charging standard? Not to mention labor costs, at least the bullet money should be reimbursed." As soon as Luo Guang finished speaking, Jill blushed and said, "I'm sorry, because you gave us a lot of funds. We have never been short of money, so we didn't think about charging at all. I only recently discovered that the money is well used. It's a bit fast." O'Brien laughed when he heard this. He just wanted to find this kind of fool who didn't love money to complete the anti-biochemical cause with him. Of course, no charge is not a long-term solution, it is too idealistic. However, O'Brien naturally would not persuade Gill to let people affected by biochemical disasters give money. He said, "In fact, there is a way to get the best of both worlds. We can maintain anti-biochemical activities without charging the victims of the disaster area. We can attract sponsorship. Thank you for your tips and votes, and of course, thank you for subscribing." Evolution begins with Resident Evil. Author, Wei Tongmiao. Chapter 176. Chapter 172 Propaganda. Sponsorship. Jill was unfamiliar with this word, or with business matters. "Just like I sponsored you, Jill, and gave you money to help you fight against biochemistry," Luo Guang explained to Jill. O'Brien nodded and said, "Yes, but the amount will be higher, at least starting from 1 million. "So much?" Gill had never seen so much money in his life. He was surprised and a little confused and said, but we don't seem to have anything to give back to those sponsors, right? Not all sponsorships are for rewards. Don't you think the same is true for Luo Guang? Writing this, I hope readers will remember our domain name Taiwan Novel Network rightward arrow. I'm thinking about Jill's safety. I don't want her to face those biochemical monsters with bare hands. Luo Guang said that he and himself should not be confused. Jill nodded and agreed with Luo Guang. What she was most worried about was that those sponsors were aiming at the entire new anti-biochemical organization. This was something Luo Guang often mentioned to her. He expressed his position: no matter who sponsors, the control of the organization must be in the hands of those of us who are anti-biochemical. O'Brien, is it okay if I call you you? Luo Guang asked. No problem, feel free to do whatever you want. O'Brien was about to answer Gil's words. Seeing that Luo Guang had asked, he answered Luo Guang's question first, because he knew that Luo Guang was going to add something to Gil's words next. After Luo Guang sorted out his words, he said, the purpose of the sponsor's sponsorship is actually easy to guess. Except for those who sincerely contribute to the anti-biochemical work, the easiest benefit for the sponsor is the money collected by Jill and the others during the anti-biochemical mission. A biochemical virus. For example, the current Red Claw Force, but the missions in which Luo Guang participated, such as the coronavirus on Bainoi Island, are not outstanding as biochemical viruses, but they play a significant role in the treatment of coronavirus diseases, so they are not will destroy all pathogens, tribal people. But for the eternal virus, Luo Guang directly destroyed all the stored samples. As for the eternal virus obtained by the apocalypse, Luo Guang had no choice. There was no intelligence support at that time, and Luo Guang was only one person, so he could try his best to at least not let the investors behind the Red Claws get the eternal virus. Luo Guang, you mean those sponsors may have obtained the virus with the intention of becoming the second umbrella company? Gil quickly reacted. O'Brien also kept up with the pace and understood what Luo Guang was worried about. Compared with GG for sponsors, biochemical viruses and biochemical weapons do hide greater interests, which makes O'Brien feel a little distressed. Because finding sponsors was his original plan, he had already put a lot of effort into selecting a list. When he heard Luo Guang's words, he later realized that he had not considered this aspect, and sighed silently in his heart. I took a breath and had to stay up all night to rescreen. This is indeed very possible. To be honest, I also made a table before, which is a list of sponsors who may sponsor our anti-biochemical work. I plan to show it to you today. O'Brien scratched his head and honestly stated what he had prepared. Then after what Luo Guang said, when I thought about it, I found that the sponsors on this list seemed to be basically some pharmaceutical companies or medical companies. Of course, there are also some foundations and the like, but they are basically related to pharmaceuticals and medical care. There's nothing we can do about it. Other industries may not be interested in these things. Gil comforted him. After Gil said this, everyone fell into silence for a while, and it wasn't until the waiter took the coffee and warm water ordered by Luo Guang and the others on the table and left that Luo Guang said, I have a proposal. The two looked at Luo Guang, waiting for Luo Guang's next words. Cooperate with TerraSF first. I remember that TerraSF is just a non-governmental organization that provides human and material support when biochemical terrorist attacks and other biochemical crises occur, ensures the development of vaccines, and then helps those victims of biochemical disasters to get out of the haze. Of course. TerraSF's main job now is to organize large-scale demonstrations and protests. To be honest, that organization is doing a good job in propaganda, but it has not actually achieved much in the anti-biochemical field. O'Brien did his homework on other anti-biochemical organizations, which is why O'Brien did not choose to join TerraSF, but chose to start a new one. Didn't you find that something is missing? Luo Guang gave a little hint. Jill thought about it, and quickly thought of something, and replied, You are saying that Tarasefa's functions do not include fighting biohazards. Yes, and according to the information I have, the humanitarian organization Tarasef has received strong support from the public since its inception, that is, donations. Although the amount of each donation is not large, there are so many people who cannot bear to donate. So the funds are still sufficient to support a small-scale army, Luo Guang said. O'Brien touched the beard on his chin, nodded slightly, and said, "You mean, let us first rely on Tarasef for development, absorb more like-minded talents, and at the same time make use of the funds and various resources there. Resources to support their anti-biochemical actions." Luo Guang's words suddenly enlightened O'Brien, and he thought of many things Luo Guang had not yet said. As Jill said before, they lack armed forces to cooperate with them in anti-biochemical operations. It's just that the biochemical crisis has not yet appeared on a large scale and the real chaos has not yet arrived, so they don't think there is any problem. This chapter is not yet finished, please click on the next page to continue reading the exciting content. Jill nodded and said, "That's true. Although there are official anti-biochemical forces like the Red Claws, your unit, Luo Guang, serves mainly NATO member countries." O'Brien thought of something and said, "But I recently received news that there is already a mercenary group specializing in dealing with biochemical crises, which seems to be called GIMZ. Tarasef seems to be interested in hiring them as their helpers, but the boss of GIMZ seems to be out on business and has no time to reply to them for a while." Because he was on a mission in Berlin, Luo Guang set up an automatic reply to G.I.M.Z's email in advance, indicating that he was temporarily unavailable for reply. Of course, Luo Guang finished replying to emails soon after returning to the Red Claws, and also made a price list and sent it to Tarasef. Hearing this, Jill looked at Luo Guang. "Luo Guang, do you know anyone from G.I.M.Z? O'Brien asked when he saw Jill's reaction. Luo Guang nodded and said, "I know him." "Is that so?" "Well, it's not easy to deal with competitors," O'Brien said. "It's different. GIMZ is a mercenary after all. They won't be online at any time to accept the tasks they post. And it's not cost-effective to hire mercenaries for some small biochemical crisis incidents." Luo Guang continued to analyze, "But Jill, you are different. Even though we say that, we don't have many people now. There are only 4 or 5 people at most." Jill smiled bitterly. She didn't think that a small team of people could play a big role. "That's why we say that we can deal with small biochemical crises, or conduct preliminary investigations in places where biochemical crises may occur, etc., and the frequency of biochemical crises now is not too frequent, so Jill and you can also have free time to continue to track down Umbrella Corporation." Luo Guang drank a sip of coffee. This time the coffee was sour, but it didn't cover up the aroma of the coffee. "I understand what you mean, Luo Guang. It is indeed quite suitable for our current situation to work around Tarasef for the time being. As for how to promote ourselves, it is mainly to grasp our positioning and the services we can provide. If it is trustworthy, why not let me contact Tarasef?" O'Brien said. Jill nodded and agreed to O'Brien's self-recommendation, because Jill and Chris did not know much about business negotiations, and Luo Guang was not suitable for negotiations. For now, the discussion about Jill and others establishing an anti-biochemical force is almost over. The next thing is O'Brien's request for a face-to-face meeting. In short, O'Brien got a crucial piece of information. Next, let's talk about the information. O'Brien looked around. There were still only a few of them in the cafe. "What is the information?" Jill was also infected by the atmosphere and spoke a little lower. O'Brien said, "It's about the G virus." Jill had heard the name of this virus from Claire, and his face was solemn. After the Raccoon City incident, didn't the G virus turn into ashes in the sterilization operation? According to Claire's information, Jill said. "Most of them, but there are still people who escaped from Raccoon City with samples of the G virus. According to the tip-off, there is a man named Frederick Downing, a former Umbrella Corporation researcher, who stole the G virus and T virus from the Raccoon City Research Institute, and then with the help of the mercenary group organized by the black market buyer, he took both the G virus and the T virus out of Raccoon City. Where did he go? The Raccoon City incident has been more than a year ago. Luo Guang had some impression of the name Tang Ning, as if he was a villain in the Resident Evil CG movie Degeneration. O'Brien didn't keep it a secret like Luo Guang did, and answered directly. He joined Will Pharma Pharmaceuticals, one of the main members of the Global Pharmaceutical Federation, and that's why I successfully found this information. O'Brien didn't answer how he found it, but Luo Guang and Jill didn't ask, as long as the information was accurate. Because Tang Ning is a former Umbrella researcher and has various virus samples in his hands, Will Pharma Pharmaceuticals, which is determined to develop the biochemical industry, takes good care of him. Not only does it provide him with sufficient funds, research platforms, and other resources, but it also gives him extremely high authority in the company. However, because Tang Ning controls a lot of core data on biochemical viruses, and the G virus samples have always been in his own hands and have not been handed over to the company, Will Pharma Pharmaceuticals can't control Tang Ning a little bit. What is this person up to? Jill asked anxiously while O'Brien was drinking coffee to moisten his throat. Tang Ning contacted General Grande of the Republic of Bajirabo. A terrorist who has been identified by various countries. He showed the characteristics of the T virus to the general. Did the terrorist buy the T virus? O'Brien shook his head and answered Luo Guang's question, no, but the terrorist also expressed a certain interest, so he asked Tang Ning to arrange a performance for him. The previous intelligence was overheard by O'Brien by installing a listening device at the headquarters of the Global Pharmaceutical Federation, but the intelligence obtained later was a reflection of his own energy. What you mean is that a biological crisis is about to happen, Luo Guang said. Gil's hands on the table were clenched into fists, suppressing the anger in his heart, and asked, time? Place? There is a small town called Boko in the Republic of Bajirabo. I can't find the exact time here, but I think it won't be too long. O'Brien could see Jill's anger, as if he knew this information for the first time. When he was walking, he clenched his hands in the same way, and his fists were trembling slightly. You told Jill about this, not just to prevent it from happening, right? Otherwise, you should immediately tell the government of the Republic of Bajirabo about this. Luo Guang pointed out O'Brien's question. O'Brien looked at Luo Guang and replied, it's normal that you don't know the situation in that country. The warlords there are fighting in chaos, and it can be said that there is no government. That Boko town must be occupied and managed by a warlord, right? That warlord is General Grande. The town of Boko is a town adjacent to the territory of General Grande and another warlord. The reason why General Rand placed the experiment there was to see if these zombies or other monsters could block his enemies. Anyway, for General Grande, the town has been depleted of young adults, is very poor, has no resources, and is not an important strategic location. It would be a waste to use his precious troops to defend there. Crazy. Jill punched the table with her fist, but Luo Guang caught it, otherwise the table in the cafe would have been smashed by Jill. Luo Guang said to Jill gently, there is no need to hurt yourself for such a person. Gil looked around and saw that the waiter was looking at his table. He realized that he had shouted too loudly. He took a few deep breaths, finally calmed down, and said seriously, we are going to help. That's what I meant. The Red Claws can't handle this matter, right? O'Brien confirmed to Luo Guang. Luo Guang nodded directly. After all, the Red Claws are not the world's fire brigade. It is very troublesome to go to other non-NATO countries to carry out anti-biochemical warfare. After O'Brien confirmed this, he continued to say to Jill, originally, I just planned to let you solve this biological crisis, but after the conversation just now, I feel it is necessary to let Tarisef participate in it, which is also the reason why we are about to form the anti-biochemical force conducts a propaganda campaign. I don't like what you said. This is not a commercial promotion. I'm sorry if I've offended you, but it's a fact. Although Jill and you have been busy fighting against biochemicals, in order to avoid being pursued by Umbrella Company, you have always acted secretly. Internationally, or in other words, your activities are relatively much of Europe has no record of your anti-biochemical deeds, which makes it difficult for us to introduce ourselves to Tarisef. Jill nodded undeniably. She actually understood what O'Brien meant, but she felt that using other people's disasters as a propaganda backdrop for her own army was too cruel to those affected. Alyssa Ashcroft, she is a reporter and a survivor of Raccoon City. If you need publicity, you can ask her for help. Claire has her contact information, and if O'Brien has your information if true, I think she is a good war reporter who can help record and expose the biological and chemical disasters that occurred in the Republic of Bajirabo, a country that not many people know about. Luo Guang didn't want Jill and the others to go to those dangerous places with the burden of Tarisef, so it was better to bring someone with anti-biochemical experience. Meow, I was able to update a few hours early today. Meow.